Just ask everyone to take their seats. There's still some seats down here in the front. Always good to sit in the front of the class. Isn't that right? There's all these students here. First of all, I would like to welcome the nursing students from Kwantlen Polytechnic University and Connie Klimek, their instructor coordinator. Welcome here. Big wave. Thanks for coming out. And with that, I will bring the regular evening meeting of Township of Langley Council to order. And the first item is adoption and receipt of the agenda items. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Fox and seconder. Councillor Arneson. All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Move on to the adoption of the minutes, the regular evening council meeting of February the 19th and the public hearing meeting of February the 19th. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Fox, second by Councillor Qualley. Any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Opposed, and that's carried. And we have a presentation, and I'll just get my notes here. We're honored to have the Langley Fundamental Schools Titans senior boys soccer team here. So welcome here this evening. They've won the 2017 BC Senior Boys AA Provincial Soccer Championships late last year and brought home the banner for the first time in the program's history. What a tremendous accomplishment for these outstanding young soccer players. A lot of hard work and dedication was shown by the team members and their coaches, and the result was being named the best in BC. You set an exemplary example for all athletes of all ages in our community and should be very proud. So I'm going to come up to the front. I think Councillor Qualley is going to assist me, where we will present you with certificates. Who scored the winning goal?
I think this is the winning goal. I think that's what I'm worried about.
Everybody, I don't know if I told soccer. Everybody has to play in a hockey game. Eric. Angela.
That's tournament MVP right there.
Tournament MVP. Thank
skinny and seeing behind this wall.
No.
Don't even start on the cats. Well, we're close to having one of those, but it's not safe.
All right, looks like everybody's, oh, wait, just until she can find her chair. All right, so now we'll move to delegations, and the first delegation is Annabelle Young from the Salmon River Enhancement Society. If you please come forward, and I'll put your mic on. And I understand you have council, yeah, and you don't need to, okay, we'll fix that up. Council Long will fix it. And you don't need to move it, it really picks up your voice from a distance. Yeah, it's an excellent mic.
I just have to get...
Sure, you get organized. And
Thank you.
And just a reminder, council did make a motion to allow an additional 5 minutes. Normally our delegations are 5 minutes, but at the last meeting we made a motion to allow an additional 5 minutes.
I also want to ask, if possible, I'm trying to keep it under 10 minutes.
Yes, that would be good.
But the problem is, I'm about 11 and a half, so is that okay? Okay, hang on.
That'll be another motion, be a committee. I'm going to have to...
Okay.
All right.
Let me just get this last little bit up here. Okay, thank you very much for having me here. My name's Annabelle Young, and I'm a director of the Salmon River Enhancement Society, or SERES, which is an environmental group based in Langley. So I'm here today to talk to you about environmental issues relating to the Trans Mountain Expansion Project, stream crossings in the township of Langley. As a background, SERES applied for and became interveners during the Trans Mountain Expansion Project because we wanted to ensure that if the proponent was going to be held to the highest possible standards in respect to environmental issues, mitigation and compensation. We hired through a National Energy Board provided funding Dr. Rosenauer, a scientist and specialist in freshwater habitat and aquatic issues. He wrote a number of reports that were submitted to the National Energy Board hearings, and we also presented a number of times to the ministerial panel that went around the country. So today I'd like to talk about these concerns because the rest believes that the township has similar ones that we do. And we would like to support and encourage this council to keep up the pressure on Trans Mountain to maintain the quality of life in our community in the face of the Trans Mountain Expansion Project. Now, okay. So our concerns with this expansion involves the methods Trans Mountain is proposing to use at stream crossings because we know they will result in needless destruction to habitat and especially streams and riparian areas, and will have extensive impacts and long-term significant effects that can't be adequately mitigated or compensated. I'm going to present very clear evidence why our concerns about the Trans Mountain stream crossings in Langley are legitimate, and I'll also show you that Trans Mountain historically is proven to not live up to its promises or even really abide by the conditions set up by the National Energy Board. So this township has been proactive in your dealings with this expansion. You were interveners and have submitted a statement of opposition to the proposed detailed route, which parallels the SERES's position somewhat. So while I'm here to emphasize our support for the Township Mayor's strong position in regard to this expansion, I also think maybe people need to further understand the sheer magnitude of what's going to happen and ensure that we are all paying enough attention. And to ask this council to use whatever tools are available to protect high-value streams and riparian areas, and to put in place some mechanism to guarantee Trans Mountain follows through on not only their promises, but also on the National Energy Board conditions, both during construction and post-construction. And that the proponent heeds local bylaws. And lastly, to set in place and demand some sort of fair and reasonable compensation and package from Trans Mountain to pay for the loss of valuable habitat and to establish some tools to actually obtain this. So within the township, we have a myriad of streams with extraordinary aquatic values, and the township's done a good job over the years to protect these values. For example, they've engaged the Langley Environmental Partners Society, an outstanding resource, and township has also undertaken rigorous aquatic assessments, mapping, classifying streams, and utilization of local government regulation and legislation. And Ceres would like us to continue in this vein. So one concern the township has identified and Ceres supports is contained in the letter of opposition written by the township, specifically Trans Mountain's refusal to follow the protections implemented by the township under the various forms of the stream classification system township already has set up in place. We addressed this with Trans Mountain many times, both face-to-face and in our reports, and they simply ignored us. And as you can see from this map, the pipeline will run right across Langley and crossing a large number of streams and wetlands. So why is this a problem? It's the destruction of riparian areas. So riparian areas are the critical habitat features along the edges of streams. They're the interface between land and river or stream. And here is an example of a reasonably healthy riparian area. And so why are they critical? They supply shelter and food for many aquatic animals, they restrict stream temperature changes, their migration corridors, and they increase biodiversity. They're natural biofilters, and they dispel stream energy. And because of their important role in supporting a diversity of species, riparian zones have some protection under legislation. So just as a note, the impact to riparian areas as a result of this project, the whole project from Alberta to Burnaby, is approximately 675,000 square metres, less a handful of streams where trenchless is actually being proposed. So how do they harm or destroy riparian areas? The methodology Trans Mountain is proposing to use when constructing their pipelines or crossing wetlands and streams is basically the cheapest, quickest and dirtiest method, trenching technology. This is compared to trenchless or directional drilling, which could otherwise mitigate a lot of the serious harm to the stream bed and riparian vegetation. Trenching significantly destroys or permanently alters in-stream bank structure and riparian habitats. And now Trans Mountain indicates that it will repair the damage, but restoration will take far longer than the short recovery time that Trans Mountain is using as its base period of 5 years. They'll be destroying many second-growth, close to 100-year-old trees, and we do not believe that in 5 years these crossings will return to a proper functioning condition with no net loss. So we have direct evidence, and now when we work through this expansion, in the manner Trans Mountain does business, and we extrapolate this to streams in Langley. And we also, why our concerns about the poor standard of their work are completely legitimate. So in 2008, Trans Mountain completed a section of twinned line in the Anchor Loop area, which is part of a UNESCO heritage site. Trans Mountain has repeatedly touted the Anchor Loop as a paradigm for environmentally sustainable pipeline construction, and in fact got an award, for the Emerald Award for Environmental Excellence. Well, Trans Mountain is duplicitous. The industry, plus some employees from Trans Mountain, under the guise of Alberta's Emerald Foundation, awarded Trans Mountain its Emerald Award for undertaking what was supposedly a sustainable project. So it's a bit like a dog scratching its own back. However, returning to Anchor Loop and the damage that was done, it was poorly done and is far from sustainable. So this is a picture of West Creek at the old pipeline here in Langley and the one at Anchor Loop that they're touting that they've done so well. Our expert, Dr. Rosenau, did an on-site assessment of parts of Anchor Loop in 2015, and it was very clear this project was anything but sustainable. There was an extensive loss of riparian habitats to streams, and considerable amounts of vegetation were destroyed. The mitigation of damage to riparian areas for the sites that were assessed was trivial or non-existent. So this is really far from something to celebrate. So here are some more examples of bad Anchor Loop streamside destruction. Trans Mountain has made many promises about how stream crossings will be returned to the same functional conditions as documented before, something close to their original state, but this evidence belies their promises. We ask the question, who is monitoring the impacts and the mitigation of these damages? In the context of our observation, it is clear that Trans Mountain cannot be trusted, and there needs to be a reliable third party to make sure the restoration actually works. So Ceres did a number of on-site assessments of West Creek and Nathan. Here's a picture of one of the many second-growth trees that are going to be taken down by Trans Mountain. There are many trees as large or larger than this along the pipeline that will be destroyed, and we are not aware of any meaningful compensation for that damage. This one had a diameter of nearly 12 feet. So in stark contrast to what Trans Mountain is proposing, the recommendations by environmental groups and BC Oil and Gas Commission says that if your channel width is greater than 2.5 meters and is good fish habitat, you should directional drill. So trenchless methods are proven, used worldwide to prevent destruction of human infrastructure as well as sensitive ecosystems. Further, the Langley Township's engineering department identified this and asked Trans Mountain to do trenchless on Nathan and West Creeks. So to finish off, what Ceres wants from the township. Ceres supports the township's position on the environmental requirements as outlined in its letter of opposition, dated May the 9th, 2017, of which the major points I've already spoken to. We believe Trans Mountain work from a scientific standpoint is not ecologically or environmentally sound. And the most important issue is their refusal to use trenchless technology, apart from a few streams. This township too has identified this problem, and we ask the township to stand firm in their position, insist on trenchless crossings at all high-value watercourses. Then their self-monitoring does not work, and especially with a 5-year limit that they have proposed. So this inability to self-monitor by Trans Mountain is very obvious with what happened at Anchor Loop. But Langley does have the means in place to monitor Trans Mountain. LEPS, for one, could be utilised. There are all sorts of other groups as well, but it's an already well-established, knowledgeable and trusted resource in this township. And as an important point, the taxpayer should not be picking up the bill for this. We are asking that Langley should reserve the right to third-party monitoring post-construction and for at least a 10-year period, and set a mechanism in place that ensures Trans Mountain pays for this. Now, I personally feel that the cost to this community will be enormous from every level of this expansion. I believe that Trans Mountain shrugs this off as the cost of doing business for municipalities, but why should the local taxpayers be footing the bill of an estimated $12 million to the township on top of all the damage that will be done and getting no real benefits? So this leads to offsets. There's little information so far as to what is going to be paid in offsets for the damages done. An offset program should be negotiated that relates directly to the damage to the ecosystems, and it should be kept in the community. It's no benefit to locals if land is bought in the farthest point north in BC to compensate for something that was damaged in the township of Langley. Ceres points out that there are all sorts of computational formulas for offsets, and we'd be happy to talk about them later. So again, we ask this council to stand firm on this and to also set up some tool to ensure that offsets in advance of Trans Mountain starting forwards to make sure it happens. Now, Trans Mountain's attempting to bypass local rules. Their refusal to abide by the township's stream classification, and we ask the township to again stand firm that Trans Mountain comply with their rules. Lastly, the very conditions that the National Energy Board set for Trans Mountain to follow appear to assume that Trans Mountain can be trusted to implement them. Now, given what's happened in Anchor Loop, plus a more recent example of their high-handed behaviour with the illegal laying of spawning deterrents in northern BC, we have no confidence that this will actually happen. So basically, we have two problems here. One, actually judging whether promises are fulfilled, and two, if the performance is deficient, which I have no doubt it will be, what do you do? Do you have a bond placed in advance, or do you sue them ex post facto, retroactively? How is the township going to deal with this? This issue is similar in a way, I suppose, with DCCs and developers in regards to making sure the job is done right. Plus, this township in their letter and in their submissions has also identified the problems of ensuring there's enough money out there by the Trans Mountain to pay, for example, the decommissioning of the pipeline. Now, I know that's 50 years from now, but it's a sort of a red flag, given that if you look at the problems Alberta's having with their orphan wells at the moment, the private landowners and municipalities are on the hook for all those abandoned wells in Alberta. So just to finish off, does this township have the power to force Trans Mountain to put up a bond to cover the cost when things go awry? And we are asking this council to set up some sort of mechanism to be able to hold Trans Mountain accountable at every single level. Thank you. And there is an appendix about the trenchless versus trenched up there.
Thank you for your presentation. That was very concise and informative. And I know our staff, I see Mr. Zwag there, was busy taking notes while you were speaking. He's up in the gallery there. He's the engineer that's been leading the fight to ensure that our rules are followed and that the protection of our environment and the protection of our taxpayers are followed. And certainly agree that we need to do what we can. As we all know, municipal laws sometimes get trumped by the federal laws, but we are still pressing as much as we can. But I do have some questions from Council.
Okay.
And Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you very much for coming tonight, and thank you very much for providing information, I think, on a subject that a lot of us know very little about, and really commending your organization for the work that you've done so far to help to support the Township of Langley and our residents, because I know that as a councillor we've seen correspondence coming forward regarding our position with respect to engineering, but we're so fortunate, I feel, to have community groups that are actively participating in this and willing to engage at the administrative level to make sure that we're doing the right thing by our environment. So I was wondering if you could, I know you mentioned a little bit about having these offsets that are available to us. Is there something that you can share in terms of that negotiation? Because I think we have a similar micro policy in the township, but I'm just wondering if you could expand on that.
Basically, they're used especially with the mining community, and there are all sorts of computations. It can be 2-to-1 to 90-to-1 in Florida. If they run 1 acre, they get 90 acres. But typically what happens is these companies try to buy some land up sort of on the Alaskan border. But what we were thinking, and we spoke to Trans Mountain about this, but we didn't get anywhere at all with them, is we were saying, right, if you're wrecking this little creek, West Creek there, why don't you go further down the creek and say where a farmer or developer has taken the vegetation away, buy the strips on either side of the creek, revegetate it, give it to the Land Conservancy in perpetuity, or with all these trees and these terrestrial trees that are being cut down, why, I would hope this council could think of something like make them buy a forest, like in North Langley, And then furthermore, with all the riparian areas, there's all sorts of areas here that need protection. I mean, even we were thinking at one stage, and we did speak to Trans Mountain about the possibility of maybe returning the Fort Langley floodplains into a floodplain, get Trans Mountain to buy that land at fair market price and change it back into a floodplain, and it would be a great thing for the community. It'd be educational, it would be wonderful, but not getting a swing or refurbished golf course or whatever like they're doing around the rest of the province. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And so just to kind of recap some of the main areas I think you were putting forward. The other one was the directional or the trenchless drilling that you were talking about. And now is it your view that that is being undertaken because of economic considerations, because it's less expensive for them potentially to do that?
That's my understanding, and they've also trying to say that it wouldn't be feasible doing it because of there's a bit of a ravine. But I mean, this township, I don't like to bring it up, but the 52nd Avenue, you did directional drilling there, and even though you went through all those problems, it did happen, and what's there now is better than if you had done a trench crossing. And also, on that letter of opposition, it's signed by an engineer from this township, and so if an engineer is saying, do it, I bet it's possible.
And then the position that it would be helpful to have 10 years of oversight of the process and maybe having LEPs or other groups involved as an independent third party to make sure that it was being done appropriately rather than leaving it in the hands of the proponent.
I think it's critical. I think you can bring in the local bands should be involved in this. I think that LEPs should be involved in this. You can see from those photographs that I showed you of Anchor Loop, that was 8 years later. There's nothing. It's like a Walmart parking lot, and they've got away with it. And that's a national park and a World Heritage Zone. So can you imagine what they think they're going to be able to get away with little old Langley?
And just one final thought. Earlier today, the township is in the process of undertaking an asset management process and policy. And one of the things that it would include is wetland and aquifers. And so I think this is very related to that. The fact is that the local government is the one that has the jurisdiction to look after and manage our environment in the sense that it exists in the township of Langley. And I understand that you're very supportive of our local government that way and to make sure that we're in the best position to be able to advance and continue to protect those areas because they do exist here and they act for the benefit of not only just our current citizens but our future citizens as well. So
exactly, we definitely, and I mean Langley has this whole classification system. I use it every day. I sell real estate, and every single day I can see a green creek, an orange creek, a red creek, and and we brought that up to Trans Mountain many times. They would have nothing to do with it, and I think it's wrong. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Richter.
Yes, thank you. Do you know how many kilometers of stream are going to be affected in the township when this pipeline goes through?
We tried to work. Do you know? No, I was going to try and work it out, and we did work it out, and I can't remember the figure. Maybe the next person might know, but it's a lot.
It's a lot, eh?
It's a huge amount.
Because I know that we've got over 700 kilometers of stream in the township right now. I'm just wondering what percentage of that is going to be affected by this pipeline.
I know. I actually tried to get hold of LEPs to ask them if they had any idea how many they would actually cross. But the problem is with Trans Mountain is also the way they've counted it. Like Langley has it. There's an orange and a red and a whatever. They are not counting those. They are sort of saying, well, there's, the Salmon River, there's West Creek, and there's Nathan. But they're not bringing in all the little, ephemeral creeks and the other little water things. And so their numbers are actually off. And so that would be something that I would hope you could get LEPs to maybe give you a figure of exactly how many, wetlands are being crossed and watercourses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you go back to your slide where you've got the list? I think it's 2 slides back.
Okay, hang on. How do I go backwards on this thing? Yeah. Hang on.
Previous. Get a hit previous.
I'm now really... Right click? It's gone. Previous. Okay, hang on.
Keep going. You're going to have to go again.
Okay. So which one are you looking at?
Keep going. Yeah. One more.
Sorry,
That's my favorite.
Sorry.
There you go.
This
All
is,
right.
Okay, hang on. Sorry. This is... Okay.
No,
Which one?
not that one. Go next. No, that's previous.
Okay, next.
Next, and one more.
Next.
Okay, so this is the list of the things that you would like us to pay attention to
Yes.
in our discussions with Trans Mountain. Do you know how many things on this list do we have the legal right to negotiate with them over?
You know, I'm not a lawyer, but I can't really answer that. Your lawyers, I think it was Megan, when they gave that presentation, they were right on top of it. And it was only Langley, Surrey, and I think Abbotsford that did the sort of cost analysis of what it's going to cost over the next 50 years.
Yeah.
And that's where that $12 million came up, And so, I mean, trying to get them to put a bond, I don't know. It might be just part of a negotiation that you might well be able to do, but you'd have to, I think, to speak to a lawyer.
So maybe a good start point for us is to take this list and refer it back to the lawyer that we worked with to see what legal basis we have to demand these or to expect that these be done.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the trenchless methodologies, I'm very curious about those, because I don't understand in the pictures that you've shown us why they have to clear cut such a broad swath when they're trenching.
Well, then, and they haven't even brought in the fact of the workspaces. I mean, the trees that they're talking about at the moment and the right-of-way, they've still got to be able to have trucks alongside to be able to pull the pipes and everything else. So it's actually very broad. So in the trenching, when they cut it through like that, it's because the pipes are big anyway.
Now, to your knowledge, in any other part of the Trans Mountain expansion, are they doing this trenchless technology?
I think they've agreed to do it under the Salmon River. I think you'd have to ask, Township here and the Fraser. They're actually doing it under somebody's hedge. On one of these, really, and just 35-year-old hedge. So, they are doing it in certain rivers where there's so many fish and they have to, know. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for bringing this forward.
Thank you. And Councillor Long.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thanks for your presentation. It really points out the incredible magnitude of this project and how devastating it potentially could be. I was going to ask specifically about the bonds. Do you think that there are any examples you can give where they would have put up a bond? Or similar companies have done similar bonding?
I think there's companies in the US that have put up bonds.
Well, we have interveners, intervening status here, and we have lawyers that have been working on this, so we'll be certainly referring, I think, your concerns to them. I just looked on the website. We have over 700 kilometers of rivers and creeks and streams in the township, and we're very much the headwaters of so many of them. So it is for sure a topical concern. Yeah. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Okay, the next delegation is Lynn Perrin. Lynn's here.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here on behalf of Pipe Up Network, Pro Information, Pro Environment United People Network, and Brandon Gabriel, Kwalin First Nation, is one of our directors. So Brandon is going to spend a minute or so, and then I will take over from him.
Greetings, Your Worship and honorable council members. My name is Brandon Gabriel. I'm from the Kwantlen Nation. As Lynn mentioned, I'm a director with the Pipe Up Network and have been since 2012. Around that time. So this evening, I'm speaking both as a director and as a member of the Kwantlen Nation. For the ancient record, my ancestral name is Kwalakwalston. Don't bother trying to spell it. My family's been here longer since before the township of Langley was established. Tonight, I'm here. Mostly, one is a concerned citizen in this community, and the other thing is a concerned member of the Kwantlen Nation. Behind me is my wife, Melinda Biga. who's Lutzel K. Dene from the Northwest Territories. We have a 2-year-old daughter who's with her auntie right now. And if she was here, she'd probably take one of the microphones over and she would be... Anyways. So this evening, I was asked here to come and say a few words with Lynn. And so the first thing that I'm here to do, one is I'm here to also send a message from Chief Marilyn Gabriel from the Kwantlen Nation. Chief Marilyn Gabriel and Councillor Tumia Knott and Councillor Les Antone were unable to come this evening. And I was asked to speak in their stead. And Councillor Tumia Knott normally does our formal assertion of our territory and our unceded lands, and so tonight I am going to be asserting that this is the unceded territory of the Kwantlen people, and that we uphold our sovereign place on this land, and that our sovereign territories extend beyond the reckoning of time, beyond the establishment of this township in this country. With that respect, I think, one, it's my duty to provide a little bit of context, that I can't just come here and assert our sovereignty without explaining some historical information to the members who are here tonight. So, History 101. Canada was established as a country in 1867. The British North America Act, provided by the monarchy in Britain, gave more than enough rights and privilege and titles to the people who were indigenous to this land, as well as to the people who are coming to settle here. The John A. Macdonald government decided against that and created a document known as the Indian Act of Canada in 1876, which is an apartheid document, which is still in place in Canada today. And that document is the reason why this township and this council chamber and the taxation that you collect and all the land that you live on, the Indian Act is what gives you that privilege and that prestige. It is not the British North America Act. So these are Indian Act lands that we are on, and then further to that, in 1982, when then Prime Minister Trudeau and Queen Elizabeth II did a revamp of the Constitution Act of 1982. Our rights and title were again recognized by the monarch of England, as well as the Supreme Court of Canada. So, with regards to the Kinder Morgan pipeline specifically, the Kwantlen Nation has maintained and upheld since the inception of the idea first came through these lands that we were and still are vehemently opposed to the Kinder Morgan pipeline expansion. With respect to the person who presented before me, we have not accepted this idea that this is a done deal, because this isn't a done deal. And so our position is that there's going to be nothing. There's going to be no pipeline coming through our lands without our permission. And we will take it to the highest courts of this land. In addition to that, the Kwantlen Nation has been working closely with the Pipe Up Network in Langley on a number of causes. We had a number of protests and rallies in Fort Langley, and we plan on doing more. We also have the support of other jurisdictions. There are other municipalities that are in opposition to the Kinder Morgan pipeline, and their opposition is a matter of public record, and you might read it in the newspapers.
If I could just interrupt you just for a second. We've gone to 5 minutes, so with the leave of council, I know that you have a little bit more to say, and I know we haven't heard from Ms. Perrin yet. So just to let you know, I'll give you a little bit more time, but the 5 minutes is up.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Unless council has any other questions.
Thank you. I have something important to say, so thank you for giving me that extra time. As we watch what's taking place in the provincial and Supreme Courts in British Columbia and Canada, a number of issues have come up with NEB decisions that overrule municipal opposition to the pipelines coming through their municipalities, and that we are in support of municipalities that are also in opposition to the Kinder Morgan pipeline. I would be remiss if I didn't pass on a message from our Chief and Council that Chief Marilyn Gabriel is always assertive and always cordial with this Township Council and Mayor, and that their position is always to work together. And I'm not straying from that sentiment from Chief Marilyn Gabriel. And if Councillor Toomey Anott, who is also our lawyer, she would also be iterating that too. And so I'm here with good intentions. I'm here to provide as much input and information as I can to community members from the Township of Langley. And that's where we stand, and I'll just stop there because I could go on all night. So thank you for hearing me.
Thank you.
Here you go. Thanks. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So, Pipe Up Network supports everything that the Salmon River Enhancement Society has presented to you. We've worked closely with them all along. Throughout the hearing, we collaborated together, we supported each other, we researched together, and Pipe Up goes from Hope to Surrey. That's our area of interest. And so we've been really paying close attention to issues in that whole area, and especially watercourse issues. And just to give you a little personal background, in the 1980s, I lived right in between Nathan Creek and West Creek on 60th Avenue, just on the Matsqui side of the border. And our neighborhood formed a group called the West Creek Preservation Group. So I've been sort of trying to take care of little watercourses, or very important watercourses, for quite a number of years now. So I think that you got a handout, and so when Annabelle was talking about what could happen to the watercourses in Langley, if you go through that, you will see what has already happened to watercourses in Abbotsford, and those are both fish-bearing creeks. They're species at risk habitat, and McCallum Brook, it was an integrity dig. There was a problem with the pipeline underneath the creek, and you can see on 2 pages what has happened to that creek, what it was like before they did the dig and what is afterwards, and it looks like it's going to be permanently damaged, that riparian area in that creek. Kilgore Creek itself, the next one, there was a spill into it in 2005, and that spill went on for 7 days before Kinder Morgan found it and did anything about it. And they made all kinds of promises in a 300-page document. And I've given links in the document, but what I'll do is I will send that document to each of you electronically, so it would be much easier for you to see those links. So I totally and full-heartedly agree with Annabelle that the Township of Langley should and must assert its bylaws and enforce its bylaws to the fullest extent possible. And I just also want to offer that I have been doing research about 20 hours a week now for the last 6 years. And even the National Energy Board has acknowledged that I'm pretty good at finding things. So if you folks, and this offer has been made to the regional district and other local governments, if you need any, and also First Nations, if you need any information, please feel free to reach out, and we'll be more than glad to help out.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Long. Is that a question?
Okay, I don't want to argue with the previous speaker about this pipeline ain't going to happen, but you say you know so much about it. Is there information you can give us about bonds?
Actually, I have twice made a submission to the province of BC's Standing Committee on Finance and Government Services, and I have suggested that the province should have a $2 billion bond. I figured out how much per barrel the damages would be and how long it could take before they could even get to and stop a spill. Like the last spill in Abbotsford, it was 6 hours before they got to it. So I would say a minimum of $2 billion bond, and I've made that suggestion to the province, and it could be on behalf of all local governments that could be directly affected by a spill.
But that's about spills. I think I was talking more about the damage or the
exactly.
repairs that have to
Well,
be
it
done
could
before.
be. It could
not,
be
not from the spill, but from
right,
the construction. Yeah.
Right. It could
spill.
be any kind, and I mean, I know I've been really keeping a very close eye on all of the conditions, the 157 conditions, and trying to keep an eye. Like we have something called Eyes on the Ground. Pipe Up does and Kwantlen does, and we're keeping a really close eye on Kinder Morgan to make sure that they meet every single one of those 157 conditions, and that's something the township could be doing right now and making sure, because they are trying to really fast track this, and they're really trying to get around some of the more onerous conditions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. It's very much appreciated. I know that there would be a possibility we could talk about this for hours, and it really is an incredibly important subject. I think I'm just going to limit my remarks at this time, though, to the First Nations and having unceded territory in which we have not. And I'm going to express my personal opinion. Some people may disagree because I know there has been consultation, but I strongly feel that the level of consultation does not meet a standard in which we are purporting to work towards reconciliation. I just couldn't say that strongly enough, because I think that other than talking about economics, and it's important, to consider all the ramifications, but I think most importantly, at the base of it, is the degree to which reconciliation is an evolving thing that we're all trying to work towards. And the township, I think, in our role, I think, Brandon, you expressed it best when talking about mutual respect and support. That's where I think that we need to be going.
Thank you for saying that. I'll respond to that too. Thank you, Councillor Arneson. So with respect to this whole idea about this Truth and Reconciliation Commission, so one of the things that I do is I work in many school districts, Vancouver, Surrey, and Langley. And it's alive and well there. There's active, you go to school, and when they make the morning announcement, they announce that they're on the unceded territory of whatever First Nations community they may be on. And one of the challenges that we face is that beyond the education system, that it falls flat once we enter the halls of government, whether that be municipal, provincial, or federal. And so that's our challenge. So one of the challenges that I'm bringing forth is to bring that challenge here and challenge this council and this mayor to accept and respect what we're trying to do in this country. And with regards to consultation between Kinder Morgan and First Nations group, there hasn't been any. And that Kinder Morgan approached us about 5 years ago. They came to our community and offered a paltry sum for coming through our unceded territories, and we rejected it flat out. At which point we also indicated to them that we're not accepting any compensation from them whatsoever. We've also spoken to community members in the Township of Langley, residents who own properties along the proposed route, and Kinder Morgan actually brought with them archaeology teams that they claimed were from the Kwantlen First Nation, which they weren't. So we know that they're using those kind of tactics. I'm not putting that out there as I'm not trying to put that out there as innuendo, but I'm just saying this is something that we've dealt with, and that we've seen these kind of tactics in other industries as well, logging and fishing and so forth, you name it. And so with that, the Kwantlen Nation is prepared. We are prepared to deal with that kind of inevitable action from these groups. And so I thank you for your support, and also indicate to you that we got this too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I please just add one thing to that? And I think that it's really important with regard to Kwantlen and the fact that their territory is unceded, that it's not just the Kinder Morgan issue. It's any development, any industrial development that could affect their territory, and especially the water courses that they, I mean, salmon is their sustenance and has been for time immemorial. So, it's really incumbent upon council to pay attention to reconciliation in all regards.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so now we move on to the next delegation.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Yes. Hanai Sakure. Hopefully I pronounced your name correctly. Apologize if I didn't.
Is it okay? Okay. I'm ready.
Yes, okay.
Okay. Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. My name is Hanae Sakurai, and I have been a resident of Langley for over 5 years. I have a degree in urban forestry from Ohio State University, and I'm also a certified arborist and a certified tree risk assessor. I have worked in the urban forest industry for 15 years, and in local government for the last 5 years, administering tree protection bylaws. I'm speaking on behalf of many township residents who are here tonight concerned for the lack of effective tree protection in Langley. Township of Langley is one of the only municipalities in the Lower Mainland which does not have a municipal-wide tree protection bylaw. Currently, tree protection is implemented under Schedule I of the Township Subdivision and Development Servicing Bylaw, which only comes into effect when property goes under development permit application review. Why would any developer choose to go through a tree assessment process when they can simply remove all the trees ahead of time with no consequence? The township has adopted protection of trees, but only for Brookswood and Fern Ridge neighborhoods. Residents are becoming more aware of unnecessary tree removals in their community that run counter to the principles of sound environmental stewardship. Trees are a valuable community resource that benefit all of us. As a result of not having a comprehensive tree bylaw, there is no enforcement or penalties for tree damage or removal, nor any designated staff to oversee proper tree protection during construction. Current process is complaint-driven, which has predictable limitations and adds little to proactive and professionally managed tree protection. It is long overdue that a tree protection bylaw be adopted and implemented throughout the Township of Langley. With that being said, we seek a bylaw which would have room for common sense, where qualified staff can exercise sound judgment based on industry best practices, professional skills and knowledge to maintain and improve the urban forest in Langley. The goal of the bylaw should be preserving healthy trees where possible based on their long-term viability, permitting the removal of those trees that are either in poor condition or in conflict with new development, and requiring the replanting of new trees. Other municipalities like Maple Ridge, Delta, and Surrey face similar challenges of a rapid rate of development within large areas of rural agricultural land. Specific policies have been adopted by other municipalities in their tree protection bylaws, such as no permit fee for one tree removal application, differentiating urban and rural areas, and exemptions for farmers who are removing trees for farming purposes on ALR land. A tree protection bylaw can be enacted without hindering owners' functional use or their enjoyment of their properties. Trees are a community asset, whether located on city property or on private property. They contribute to the quality of our lives and make our communities more livable. We understand that development and growth is inevitable, and we seek the township to be more proactive in planning our future communities, to be more sustainable, livable, and a harmonious blend of agriculture, residential areas, businesses, and our unique physical environment. With input and consideration, a tree bylaw specific to the township can be outlined and adopted. Therefore, tonight, we request Council to form a standing committee to review a comprehensive tree protection bylaw for the Township of Langley. Standing committee to review the issue and provide specific recommendations to Council after 90 days. Committee should include Township's community development and park staff, private and public arborists, local community leaders, environmental groups, farming community, and local developers. Committee can shift through relevant information and give Council specific advice options that will be generated with multiple stakeholders. We are available to advise on the committee. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Councillor Arneson has.
Oh, I pressed the button so fast. Thank you. I just want to gather my thoughts. Thank you so much for coming tonight. It's very much appreciated. I see you have a lot of support in the audience here. So I'm interested in the idea, if you have any awareness in your professional capacity, if the township knew, for example, what our target should be in terms of urban tree canopy protection. Do you have any kind of ballpark idea?
That's a hard question to answer because I know, I believe Singapore is one of the most forested cities in the world, but I tried to research some tree canopy data, but there was nothing that I could find. So that's a tree canopy study. It would be one idea that could happen for the township. And try to reduce the loss of tree canopy.
Because my understanding is other communities, if you have at least a baseline to know, you know whether or not you're losing or eroding your tree canopy, and in ways that you can manage your policies so that you're increasing them at the same time. Because once, you know, it's like balancing your checking account. You can't just keep taking it out and not putting anything back. So I also like your reference to our community sustainability charter that we have, because it talks about the overarching document that provides us with information as to how we can go forward, and certainly environmental sustainability is a huge component, and tree protection certainly is right up there. And I just have to say, being the epicenter of building, it's highly appropriate at this time that we start to look at what other communities have done to make sure that we are in line with protecting our forest assets. I'm just seeing if I had another really good comment. I'm just very supportive of your coming tonight and bringing this forward, and I'm hoping that this will be something that will be moving forward finally. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Richter.
Yes, thank you very much for coming, and it's nice to see the next generation out. I know the last generation, I see Kathleen over in the audience, and she fought for years for us to get a tree bylaw. And unfortunately, we ended up at loggerheads over private property rights versus community assets. But I've got 3 questions here for you. I like the idea of a standing committee. How big do you think the standing committee should be?
Like I listed out the committee members, and I don't know, I think there should be at least 2 or 3 from each of the groups that I pointed out.
Okay. So you're looking at a committee of around 20 people then?
And it could be maybe well, not all the committee members meeting all at once, but having different meetings
Okay.
at different times.
All
I think
right.
it would be hard to get a meeting together for 20 people all the time. So.
Sometimes it can be, yes. Now, you've said a 90-day framework. When would you want to see the standing committee start its work?
As soon as possible.
As soon as possible, okay. Well, sometimes it takes time to advertise to get people to come forward to sit on committees. And having said that, if we did run it for 90 days, are you prepared to have this issue become an election issue this year?
Absolutely.
Because the timing would put it right into that time frame.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your presentation.
Councillor Fox.
Thank you, and thank you for coming. I'm particularly interested in one aspect of your presentation, and that's to do with the ALR. 75% of the township of Langley is in the ALR. How do you perceive a tree bylaw affecting the ALR in a regulated community? Richmond's not regulated. We are.
So from my understanding that the regulated communities have just put an exemption in their bylaws stating that exemption is that there's no permit is not required for removal in AR land.
Right to farm
That's correct.
takes precedent over any bylaw locally?
Absolutely, yes.
So you're not talking about the 75% land mass that's in the ALR at all?
No, but I do want to point out that we have seen a clearing of trees on the AR land, and then those property owners asking for exclusion from the AR for the purpose of development. So my hope is that with the standing committee that some of those topics can be discussed, but I understand from my understanding that township is under the Local Government Act, and we're not to regulate anything on the ALR lands.
Right, okay. I just wanted to see if you understood that, because the pushback, I think it was mentioned here from people on the ALR, the last time a tree bylaw was mentioned was substantial. In fact, we've already received some correspondence just based on the fact that in the 3 days the agenda's been out, which basically states, I'm in the ALR, you can't regulate it because or you can't oversee a tree bylaw because we are a regulated community.
I think from the residents' perspective, we like to see AR land stay in the AR land. If the clearing is for agriculture purposes, that's completely fine. But
okay. So I just want clarity in what you're referring to is the 25% in the urban containment boundary at this point in time. Okay.
Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, thanks for coming today. You mentioned that many of the communities in the Lower Mainland here have a tree bylaw, and I'm wondering which of the communities you feel have maybe the best balance of protection of trees and private property rights, and so those kind of things. Is there ones that particularly stand out that you think are exemplary?
I'm a little bit biased because I do work for City of Richmond, but one of the great things about City of Richmond is that the bylaw allows us and my colleagues to use our own discrepancy. We don't have, such as City of Vancouver has a list of about 10 criteria that has to meet in order for them to grant a tree removal permit. And I think that's very restricting because for the City of Richmond, we can meet with homeowners, talk about what their problems are, and we even allow tree removals for trees that just simply outgrown their space because it's a wrong tree in the wrong place. And then we just seek a replacement tree, and we advise on what kind of replacement tree is suited for that space. Whereas, such as City of Vancouver, if it's a very healthy tree, and if it's not causing significant property damage, then they would not allow them to be removed. Some municipalities will seek a certain number of replacement trees based on how many trees are removed, such as Abbotsford is 2-to-1 replacement or 3-to-1 replacement based on the size. But City of Richmond, it's only when property owners are removing more than 2 trees in a 12-month period that we could seek up to 2-to-1 replacement. But we always visit the site and review the property. So if the property owner is removing 1 tree and there's 10 trees being kept, we probably won't seek a replacement tree to be planted, or 2 trees that they're removing, but they're already keeping like 10 trees. So we use a lot of discrepancy, and we use our professional judgment, and I really like that.
Okay, and so in those, in that system, a little more flexible, is there, if there's a disagreement, or is there a possible appeal avenues that's normally put in that process?
There is appeal process set in place for City of Richmond and other municipalities as well. So we have 3 tree bylaw staff. It's me and my colleague that will go out to do regular tree removal permit application on residential areas that are non-development. And if they want to appeal, our manager would go out and take a look as well. If he upholds the decision, then we ask for like a tree risk assessment report from a certified arborist. If the arborist states that if a high hazard, we'll review that report again, and that if that decision is upheld again, then they could go to council.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
You mentioned staffing. Just a comparison. So, the City of Richmond, you said it has 3 staff that deal. Do they deal specifically with the tree bylaw?
That's correct.
And is the funding, is there a cost recovery mechanism in the permitting? And
yes.
Is there is it a net?
It's mostly through the permit application fees.
Yeah. Okay. So does the City of Richmond bear any cost, or is it 100% cost recovery?
100% cost recovery,
okay.
Yes.
Good. Thanks. Councillor Long.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thanks for coming. I'm just curious as to why you feel that there should be this big committee formed in several months' worth of work when we have a tree bylaw in Brookswood, Fernwood. So do you have difficulty with that particular bylaw, or have you had a chance to examine or assess that bylaw that's already in place?
I have read the bylaw. So from my understanding is that in the Brookswood Fern Ridge neighborhoods, depending on your lot size, you can remove 2 to 4 trees a year, I believe, in a 12-month period.
There's a formula. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but there is a formula.
So without any permit. And I think with that kind of bylaw, when property owners can basically remove remove the best trees on the property, possibly, just because they don't like the tree or whatever reason that they may have. And then they could apply to remove the poor condition trees. So we're not protecting the most valuable trees that are suitable for retention for long-term viability.
So you don't think the Brookswood Fernridge tree bylaw is restrictive enough? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct. In a word, yes.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. There's no further questions. Thank you for your presentation, for your delegation. Okay, so. All right, that ends the delegations. We move to reports to council, and the first one is the winery lounge and special event area. Councillor Fox moves it. Is there a seconder? Councillor Qualley seconds. So at this point, I would ask if there are any submissions. First of all, just to be clear, that the motion is that council endorse. Okay, thank you. The motion's been made and seconded. Did you catch the seconder? Did I catch the seconder? So moved by Councillor Fox, seconded by Councillor Qualley. I didn't say it loud enough. Thank you. There's a bit of disturbance here. So at this point, I would ask if there are any submissions from the public regarding Winery Lounge and Special Event Area Endorsement Application number 33. And for a second time, submissions from the public regarding special event endorsement application 33. And for a third time, any submissions from the public regarding Winery and Lounge special event area endorsement application number 33. Seeing none, I now turn it over to council if they have any questions of staff or any concerns. Councillor Fox.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. We've received two pieces of correspondence as far as I can see. One from our direct neighbor to the east who's in favor of this, and one from a neighbor a couple of properties to the west who's not in favor of this. I'm going to speak in favor of this. I think that this is a new winery. It's a perfect spot. This has been constructed to a high standard, and I think that given the configuration of the wine industry in South Langley, I think this is another asset that will fit into our Circle Farm tour. It will fit into a rural South Langley tour, and I think that this is a great asset in our farming community. So I will be fully supporting this.
Councillor Arneson. Oops, hang on, Councillor Arneson. I turned your mic off by mistake. Councillor Arneson, there you go.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to staff, I'm wondering, I know that there's a comprehensive business model that's already in play. I'm just wondering if there is any opportunity for council, either now or in the future, to consider limiting the hours of operation.
Mr. Steffi? I don't think the hours here are very extensive. I can't remember.
11:30.
Oh, yeah.
I think, Your Worship, that would be something that would be a recommendation from Council to the Liquor Control Licensing Branch.
Okay, thanks.
So that could happen subsequently?
At any point.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Richter. Oh, sorry, Councillor Qualley is next, then Councillor Richter. I'm going to get this thing figured out yet.
Sorry, just to be clear, just following up Councillor Arneson's point, that can be changed. We're not suggesting we'll go back and change the operating hours that are part of this application. Is that right?
No, I think she just wanted to know if it was possible to do, and it is at some point, but she's not recommending it.
Oh, I think it's, okay. I think it's part of the licensing process, but okay. Sorry, I just didn't understand the question. I think this is a great addition to the community, and I think a lot of the product that that's being sold at the winery is being grown on the estate at the winery there, and I think it's a really great addition to the community. So I wholeheartedly support the supporting of the farm and the agriculture, and they're making really good wine. So I think we should be able to have more people enjoy it.
Thank you, Councillor Richter.
Yes, I just want to say that I had the opportunity to visit the winery down there this past summer. Very, very impressed with the facilities as well as the interest and dedication of the owners to the community, to the agricultural community here. And I also am very much in support of this going forward.
Thank you. Councillor Long.
Thanks, Your Worship. There is the item on table here, if I've got the right one. This is it's actually not numbered, but anyway, it's from the neighbor who has some concerns. So I wonder if we can make sure that these are at least addressed somehow by staff and the proponent. They don't seem to be terribly serious, but there is some, some reasonable concerns in that Zero Avenue isn't used to having perhaps too much, traffic going in and out of establishments like this. So there might be some additional signage, maybe stopping people from parking on the road, which is what it mentions. I'm not trying to put roadblocks in, but I'm just wondering if these can be referred to staff, that the concerns that were brought in and staff could consider the proponent addressing them if possible.
Mr. Steffi is not his head, so they'll take that into consideration and work on that. I think I've been to that operation myself, and they had lots of parking, and
there's no need to be parking on Zero Avenue.
No, I don't see exactly. And that was a large event that they were hosting that night, and everybody parked on site, so it's quite a big acreage there. All right, I see no further discussion. I'm going to call the question on E1. And it carries unanimously. Move on to E2. This is development permit application number 100886. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Fox, seconder. Councillor Whitmarsh. At this point, I'd ask if there are any submissions from the public regarding the development permit application 100886. if you wish, just come forward. Yeah, thank you. Yes, you just want to come forward and then speak to the mic, and I'll need your name and where you live, neighborhood, city, and you'll have maximum 5 minutes to speak.
My name is Glenn Ashton, and we live on the west side of this proposed development, and we're directly across from it. And I've had this emailed to you, and I think you may have it. I don't know if you've had a chance to read it at all. I will try to read it out. You do have it, and would you read it before you vote on it, or should I read it out?
You've got your 4 minutes and 34 seconds. It's all yours. You can,
as proposal stands, we would be more negatively affected by the noise and traffic than if the building were bay doors were either to the north or to the east. The best case scenario would be, as per the attachment B, development permit C, industrial, section 2, which states a parking area may be located at the front of the building. Parking and loading shall mainly be at the rear. This would put the building on west side of the property and the bay doors facing in to the industrial area. The building would then be a very good buffer for the sound from because where the doors are right now, the parking area is right in front of our house. And when the trucks are backing up, there's backup alarms on the trucks. Well, they'll be backing up. That noise will be heard from us right across the street. That's where our house is. It's been there long before that was even an industrial park. So that was the concern. The other concerns were the building in behind it, which is Norco Trailers. They put 2 big bay doors in, and they operate when they're busy from 6 in the morning till 1 o'clock at night, and they operate with the doors open. And they're building trailers, so they have to bang to get them all lined up. Plus, they have air nailers that they're air nailing them together, and so that's awful loud. Our bedroom window faces out to the street because when we built, there was no industry there. So those are the concerns. We feel that if it was to the north, we could support that variance that they're asking for. But the way it is now, it doesn't really help us at all, but it could if it was faced the other way, either to the north or facing in. The original way they had planned was to put the parking all and the doors all on the west side of the property, and that would not work. But so they had designed a long building at first, but they could have flipped it and put all the doors facing in. It would made a good buffer between the industrial land and the non-industrial land. Okay, that's...
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other submissions from the public regarding development permit application 10886? And for a second time, submissions from the public regarding development permit 10886, and for a third time, submissions from the public regarding development permit application 10886. Seeing none, then now is an opportunity for the proponent, if they wish to address the concerns raised by the submission from the public. Is there opportunity? Okay, see there's none. So now we'll go to council, and Councillor Richter.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Are you? No. Are you the proponent? You're the proponent?
Can I just say something about the noise?
Sure. Okay, I haven't heard from. Okay, Mr. Lee, yeah, if you wish. Yeah. Sorry, I'll come forward, please. And are you the owner or the?
No, I'm the project architect.
You're the project architect. Okay, great.
Lee.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's
Mayor.
what I was asking for. Thank you.
Members of the council. Yeah, regarding the noise, our civil engineer, Vector Engineering, did a study, like a truck turning study, and the size of the truck that the owner would be using would be actually be turned within the site, and so it would not go into the public road to turn and make more noise. So that would be one of the options to reduce the sound. But also the noise of the operation will also be contained inside. And because it's a prefab work, all the welding and all the work is contained inside the building, and all the pieces that come, there's no noise of cutting or drilling or anything because it all comes pre-drilled, and so it's just a welding sound that's in the inside. So we don't expect too much noise issues.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council for the proponent? Councilor Richter? Yeah, I've got you on.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, is there any reason why the layout that's been proposed here couldn't be flipped so that the access to the site is farther north and not right across the street from that fellow's house?
Typically, where the highway is, we'd like to still try to stay the entrance as far away from another road or crossroad. So that was one of the main reasons.
Why would you not want an access close to the highway?
Well, just from an engineering point of view, not too close to a corner.
Okay, but you're not really close to the corner there. There's still another building.
Still.
Yeah. But there's no reason why you couldn't flip it, right? So that what's on the south becomes on the north?
Yeah, we haven't looked into that, but possibly, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Councilor Long, did you have a question for?
Well, I wasn't going to suggest it was quite that easy, but you heard the gentleman before. Is what he's suggesting something that you would consider? And maybe we could see a map that shows a bit more of the surrounding areas. I'm not suggesting, I'm just asking for your comments on whether moving the building around that has been suggested is something that would be possible, number one, and number two, is that something that the proponent would want to do?
No, we would not be wanting to do that. It's just that physically it's always able to, but not something that we would like to pursue, obviously.
And can you give any reasons why?
Well, again, I think it's just the fact that the proximity to the corner. We always like to stay far away as we can from the major highway corner. So that's our position.
Thank you. All right.
Councilor Arneson, did you have a question for the proponent? No, you want to wait. Councilor Fox, did you have a question for the proponent? Okay. Hey, Councilor Fox.
Okay. Question and comment. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Lee. The problem with putting the building and flipping it is the street, 260th, goes downhill. So you have to get your trucks. If it was a northern entrance into that particular building, you have trucks having to climb up a hill to get into this building. Is that not a problem? Does that not pose a problem to you?
No, our engineer
You see,
never brought that
right
up.
here, with your present configuration, it's on a level, right? You come off the street, you're on the same level. That parking lot's level off of the north or the southwest corner. If you go to the northwest corner, they've got to climb up a hill, right?
Yeah, but a little bit, but I'm not sure how much that is.
No.
That's quite a bit.
Okay. Put yourself as a truck driver. No.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Richter?
So I just want to make sure it's not that big a hill.
Yeah.
The trucks could get up it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Yep, thank you. So I'm going to clear the queue. If now any discussion. Here we go. Start over again. If you want to push your buttons again because of, I just cleared the queue. Councilor Richter.
Yes, so I would like to make a motion that we refer this to staff to consider the request to have the truck bay at the north end of the property.
Second by Councilor Long. I'll open up the referral. Discussion on the referral, Councilor Long.
So I'm just would like to find out all the details about that rather than doing it now. I don't think I've been convinced one way or another, but I mean, the motion is to refer it to staff for that discussion and come back.
Okay. Any other discussion on the referral? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question on the referral. Carries with Councilor Fox opposed. Okay, we'll move on to bylaws for first and second reading. F1 is rezoning application 100498, bylaw number 5350. Could I have a motion, please? Councilor Fox, seconder. I have a second. Councilor Whitmarsh. Discussion. I'm going to clear this off here. Councilor Arneson.
Yes, thank you. Through your worship to staff, RU6 zoning, where they're allowed to have an abattoir, I'm wondering if there is any jurisdiction here for odor management protocols from Metro Vancouver, if it's happening in the ALR. Through your worship to staff.
Steffi?
Your worship, the Metro Vancouver, the regional air quality bylaws will be applicable, and if there are odor issues, they would have to be referred to Metro Vancouver. It is not something that can be, I guess, retroactively applied for, or sorry, the other way around, proactively considered, but rather it's something that they would be involved if there was an issue for them to enforce. They don't have a requirement for measures, for example, to make sure that the certain measures are complied with.
Okay, I do go to their meetings irregularly, and I know that they're working on something called a odor unit that they use in Europe. We haven't actually adopted it here. I just wondered whether or not, so you're saying that it is just based on complaint, and we don't know until there is potentially a problem whether or not there would be something done about it. That's, I guess, that what you're saying. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor,
sorry, I do have another question.
Yep.
I think in the staff report there was a difference between abattoirs that are on agricultural lands, such as this zoning, and in an industrial use. So I'm just wondering, through your worship to staff, is that an absolute number of animals that are being processed? That's the difference between those two uses.
Mr. Steffi?
Your worship, it doesn't have to do with the number of animals, but rather the actual use of the property, and that is the processing of meat. And as Councillor Arneson referenced, it's either allowed in the rural area under RU6 or in the industrial areas in M4, I believe.
Okay. Mr. Steffi, just to clarify, the criteria for it to be in the agricultural land reserve would be that they are required to only process the livestock that they produce on their farm. They can't start bringing in from other farms. That's the intention of this, and that's what the ALC would be.
That's correct, Your Worship. The question was from Councillor Arneson, though, was regarding RU6, which does provide for an abattoir.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Richter.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify that. So the abattoir would only be for the slaughter of animals grown on that farm, or would it also include animals grown on farms owned by the same property owner?
Mr. Steffi?
Only those grown on the farm, Your Worship.
On that particular farm. Okay. And will that be made clear when the advertisement is put out for the public hearing?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call a question on F1. Carries unanimously. Move to F2, and this is official community plan amendment and rezoning application number 100150, and development permit application numbers 100854 and 100870. This is Vesta Properties Bylaw 5339, Bylaw 5340, and Bylaw 5349. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Fox, Councillor Whitmer, seconds. Any discussion on F2?
Yes.
Councillor Richter?
Yeah, I'm not in favor of this because it's got 54 tandem parking spaces, and we know that tandem parking spaces causes problems in Willoughby. The other reason why I'm not in support of this is because there are 426 significant trees on the site and only 3 are proposed for retention.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Arneson?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I have the same concern about the trees and also about the parking, but mine was more specific to the visitor parking for the row houses. But I also want to just put this forward in case there are some ongoing discussions. I really like the fact that Vesta is taking a leadership role and they're going to be putting in EV charging stations, but I'd like to encourage them to do it at the beginning stages of their proposal and not wait until later stages to start the implementation. there's a lot of information that suggests that it's very expensive to do a retrofit as opposed to having the rough-in already done, and I think we're heading in that direction, and we might as well start on it right away. And also just having potentially, given its vicinity, car sharing options, having that built into some of their, I call it enhanced visitor parking area, so that you have an opportunity for, I just went to a forum, actually, it was put on by New Westminster, and I'm talking about all the innovations that we're going to have, but car sharing is something that I think we should be promoting more, as we've discussed around the council table, so I would just put those forward as propositions.
Thank you. See no further discussion, I'll call the question on F2. And it carries with Councillor Richter and Councillor Arneson opposed. And move on to bylaws for first, second, and third reading. G1 is Drinking Water Conservation Bylaw, bylaw number 5321. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Qualley and seconder, Councillor Sparrow. Discussion on G1. Okay, I will call the question on G1. Carries unanimously. We go to H, bylaws for consideration at third reading, and H1 is Brookswood Fernridge Community Plan Amendment, Cedar Creek Estates Manufactured Home Park, bylaw number 5320. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor. Okay. So a motion to refer to staff. Do we need the motion on the floor first and then refer them? No. So Councillor Long moves to refer H1 to staff to consider the submissions from the public. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Fox. Discussion. Councillor Long.
Well, Your Worship, I guess we've learned that the owner of the property has put a rezoning application in prior to third reading on this bylaw, so that it would be grandfathered. So that presents a problem for a bunch of people. This public hearing process that we've all been through over the last few months, the first segment was adjourned so that there can be some communication between the owner and the residents. I think we were quite excited at that particular time around Christmas that there would be some agreement reached between the owners and the residents, but that did not happen. In fact, the last public hearing to me was even more confusing than the first one. So I think that those concerns that were raised at the public hearing by both the owner and the residents need to be addressed, and I don't think we can do it here at this table tonight. It's very complex. It's a lot of issues and emotions involved. But the best thing to do, I think, is to revert to staff and have them discuss it with the proponent and the owner and the residents, and try and come up with a recommendation to council how to proceed.
Thank you. Councillor Richter.
Yes, a question through you to Mr. Backen. Mr. Backen, is there anything legally preventing us from proceeding with third reading of this particular bylaw at this point in time?
Mr. Backen.
No, Your Worship. Right now, the status is there's an application for rezoning that's been submitted that would be grandfathered under the existing OCP. The new modification would only be effective for that's disposed of or any other application, but council could proceed with the OCP independently.
So we can proceed with that. So I have a question. Why was the third reading not put on the table? Why?
Yes.
Why was it just automatically deferred?
Only because the motion was made to defer the matter to staff prior to the third reading being moved and seconded.
Either, can do it either way. Same result. Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I won't be supporting a deferral. I think that there's been a lot of time and energy on all sides going through this process. When we had the public hearing, I was under the understanding that there would be substantive information that would be coming forward, and I didn't really feel that we had the fullness that was necessary at that time to try and figure out what to do under the circumstances. There's no impediment to going forward at this time. I think Council's will initially was to go forward and to amend this, and so I think that I'm not going to support a deferral because I think that it's just prolonging a situation that I don't necessarily think has, well, I don't know what to say about the outcome, but anyways, I don't think personally I'm going to be helped by the fact if it's sent back to staff for some further review and input, so I won't be supporting that.
Councillor Qualley?
Yeah, I don't think the outcome will change regardless of whether we have more information or not. So I think if we can find a way to perhaps come up with some other ideas or find some other information, I'll support the referral to staff, because I think you know, we've built into our policy, our manufactured home redevelopment policy, as I guess as much as we can to protect the safety and the security of the residents there. And so I feel confident that that policy is in a good place. But I think we can maybe get a bit more information on this application, on this rezoning that's just come in. So I'm going to support the deferral. Is it a deferral or a referral? It's a referral to staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Long?
Well, yeah, I just want to say that certainly Mr. Backen has explained the anomaly here in that the OCP amendment can go forward on its own, but it doesn't preclude the fact that the owner of the property has put in this rezoning application. So sure, we could give it third reading tonight, but it's not going to give the desired result of the residents from what I can see. So we need help here. We need to pull in a lifeline, and I think that staff needs to really, with this referral, dig down, get some professional advice from lawyers or whoever, and try and come back with a potential solution that will make everybody happy.
Thank you. Councillor Fox?
Well, let me put it this way. In 13 years of sitting here at this table, this is probably the most confusing public hearing I've ever been to. And certainly the outcome is not crystal clear, unlike maybe some people at this particular table. I don't want to, in any way, shape, or form, give the residents of Cedar Creek a false context. I think the more information that we have, the more accurate the information we have, the better off they're going to be and we're going to be. We could certainly give this third reading, we can give it fourth reading, but then to find out from a lawyer in due course that, you know what, because the proponent, the owner of the property put in a rezoning application, it's all for naught. Go back, redo it all, and where does that leave the residents? I think the residents need to have some idea of what the implications are. I think that right now, as we can see right there, it says MH1. That's what it is, MH1. But if we try to rezone it and say it's going to stay as MH1 and all of a sudden we find out that's not accurate, where does that leave the residents? It leaves them up in the air. It devalues the potential of their investment in the property. That's not what they want to hear at all. So I think I'm going to support the referral. I think we need to buy some time here. We don't have to rush this through immediately. We need to make an informed decision with all the facts laid out in front of us and what those implications are, however they may have settled down. So it's a challenge. As I said, this is one of the most challenging and public hearings that I've seen. I understand where the owner's coming from, but I fully understand where the residents are as well. And somewhere we have to find a common ground in between there.
Thank you. Councillor Richter?
Deferring this is a travesty. And it's and to say that it's all for naught is not exactly quite right. And through you to Mr. Backen, am I incorrect in assuming that these two are separate and distinct in the sense that we are not obligated to vote yes or no for either one of these? We vote on each of them on their own merits. So even if we voted yes tonight on this one, we're not obligated to vote yes or no on the rezoning application.
Your Worship, that's correct. This is a redesignation of the OCP that's before council. The application is for a rezoning of the specific property. The challenge council faces, however, is with the rezoning being submitted under the previous OCP, it puts the residents in a difficult position because any time they try to sell or convey their properties, they're going to be required to put notification that their properties are subject to a rezoning. And I don't think that's the intent that council had when this thing moved forward. So they are independent, but each have their own impact on the residents, and it's quite true that council need not approve any rezoning once it gets to them. Council's discretion is unfettered in that regard.
And is there any time restrictions on how long this rezoning application that the current owner has just submitted as of last Friday, is there any restriction on how long that rezoning application can meander around out there before it comes in front of council?
The matter must not lie dormant for more than 1 year. So as long as the owner is working towards a rezoning application, he has a period from the time he stops working on it for a period of 1 year.
So by us deferring this tonight, we could be putting this off for a year or more.
It's being referred. Sorry, not deferred. It's being referred. It's not a deferral, it's a referral, just to be clear.
Okay, well, if it's a referral, when is it going to come back to council?
That's up to staff. And the referral basically is asking staff to respond to the public submissions, and that would be working both with the proponent and with the landowner and with the residents. But that is what the motion would be, as we have done previously to third readings.
Yes, but we gave this particular landowner a 2-month adjournment in order to work out an arrangement with his residents, which he was unable to do. Now, I suppose the question could be raised, why was that? Was this rezoning always on the table?
So basically, right now, there's a motion on the table for referral, and so the discussion should be directed to, and I'll leave it at that. Okay, any other discussion on the referral? Call the question. It carries with Councillor Richter and Councillor Arneson opposed. Move on to H2, and that's rezoning application number 100447, development permit application numbers 100816 and 100819, bylaw 5294. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Arneson, second by Councillor Qualley. Discussion on H2. Seeing none, I'll call the question. And it carries unanimously. Move on to H3, rezoning application number 100479 and development variance permit application number 100091, bylaw number 5337. This is Hauser Severide. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Whitmar, second by Councillor Fox, and Councillor Long.
Well, I'd like to go again with the referral. I think this should be referred back to staff, and the concerns that I heard, and I'm very keen to hear what the rest of council have to say, is in terms of what the lot coverage is allowed. Now, we've had a bylaw in existence for quite a while that determines what the lot coverage can be on your property. Excuse me, that's not the lot coverage. Okay, what the building envelope would be on your property, and I believe it's 35%, and staff can correct me, whatever that number is. And most of the homes in that area did not choose to build to the exact maximum of the amount of lot coverage that they can have with their homes. So what's happening more recently, and I guess it was pointed out to us at the public hearing about a property down on Southwich Crescent, is that many developers are now building as large a home as they can fit on the property, which I suppose is allowed in the bylaw. But what I heard at the public hearing was that may not be suitable in this particular area, considering that it's a subdivision now that's being put in the middle of other already developed properties. So I'm wondering if we could refer this, or maybe council can comment on the value of referring this to staff to determine what perhaps the average lot coverage of the homes is in the region, perhaps by taking a parameter of so many meters, I suppose, of this subdivision, and say what is the lot coverage of the homes. If the average is 31% or 32 or 29, maybe we could consider that as a prerequisite of the development. So I'll just put that out there.
Okay, so it seems like you put that out there. I'll ask Mr. Seffi to provide some some guidance to us on what the lot coverage is in this particular proposed subdivision and how it relates to the lots and surrounding that. So perhaps Mr. Seffi provide us with some more information on that.
Thank you, Your Worship. The proposed zoning, Your Worship, provides for a maximum lot coverage of 35%. That is the R1E zone, which is proposed. The surrounding area is predominantly SR1, which provides for a similar lot coverage that is 33%. In terms of what has actually occurred in the past number of decades in terms of construction, that would be something that would require some research time by staff to go back to the building permit records to find out what the average lot coverage might be. But the fact is that the difference between the SR1 zone and the proposed R1E zone is really minimal in terms of the lot coverage. And something that Council may wish to consider, Your Worship, rather than the lot coverage, which was, as staff understood, part of the discussion at the public hearing, was really the setback from the property lines as opposed to lot coverage in terms of the proximity of two buildings with each other. So something that Council could consider if they so choose in terms of addressing the public hearing concerns could be to increase the setback from, say, 1.5 to 3 meters for each one of the lots, either on the periphery or maybe the entire subdivision, to allow for more of a distance between the buildings, to make the subdivision look more fitting of the context in which it is in terms of the complementary nature with the surrounding area.
Thank you. That.
I like that. Let's hear what the rest of council has to say then.
Thank you. Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I also support that. I heard there were concerns in addition to that, but just to focus on that for a moment, I think I recall some of the wording of this, and part of the rationale was we were going to have these special guidelines to create a character for the neighborhood, so it would be in keeping with the look of the other houses. And I find that kind of ironic when most people didn't express a concern about that. They actually expressed a concern about the loss of the greenery and the trees and the scale of the properties. So I went to look the other day, and because there was a reference to some of the newer homes in pie-shaped lots that people felt, some of the residents anyways, didn't feel fit in. And so I think it would be highly advantageous if we were to send this back to staff to look at the ways in which, either through setbacks or some kind of way that we can manage to make the scale of these new homes fit into the established neighborhood. I think that that's an important condition, and I think that that's what we should be going for at this point, because more than anything, I don't think we should be doing something to destroy what obviously everybody thinks is rather idyllic at this point. So I think it's helpful to refer it back.
Thank you. Councillor Richter.
Yeah, most people who spoke last week aren't opposed to development, but they are opposed to this R1E development because it is intrusive to what is already a lovely neighborhood and should remain a lovely neighborhood. So I'm not sure keeping the R1E designation is the best for the neighborhood. And certainly if part of the referral back could look at whether or not you actually need to squeeze 14 lots in there, or can you make it less lots with bigger setbacks between the houses, I would be supportive of supporting a referral for that purpose.
Okay. Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, I generally like the design of this project. I like the idea of changing the setbacks. The 1.5 may be a little small, so I like the idea of sending it back to staff to take a look at the setbacks. I don't think that 14 lots is necessarily too many. These are all 10,000 square foot lots or bigger, so I don't think we need to have even bigger lots than 10,000 square feet. I think that the lot size is fine. I think we should just maybe fine-tune some of the setbacks to keep the houses in a more reasonable size. And I think that we did talk in the proposal also talks about making the roads up to township standards. That would include sidewalks, and it's a 20-meter wide road. So I think all of those things fit within the neighborhood, and I think it'll be a very nice neighborhood. But I would encourage us to send it back to staff on setbacks.
Thank you. Councillor Fox?
I'll just agree.
Thank you. I'll just agree. It's a 3-word speech. Thank you. Councillor Qualley? Can you do shorter than that one?
Not quite, but I do agree also with Councillor Whitmarsh's comments. But I think the proponent has done a good job in lots of areas, and I think a lot of the concerns the proponent addressed at the end of the public hearing in terms of the access road and a bunch of the improvements to the street infrastructure and stuff. But I do want to make sure that this fits in the character of the neighborhood, because it is a pretty unique neighborhood, and so I'll support the referral, and hopefully we can come back with a place that works for everybody.
Thank you. So just before we look at a referral motion, I just want to ask Mr. Seffi, you mentioned that at this point we could either refer it back to staff and have you work on the setbacks, as you mentioned, or we could make an amendment to change the setbacks from 1.5 to 3 meters. Would that accomplish the same, or does a little bit of work need to be done before we do that? Because if we did that, that would just save a big step. But I just want to make sure it's the right thing.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for the question. I failed to mention in my previous comments that the proposed, what I proposed as a 3-meter setback is actually in line with the SR1 zoning requirements. So it wasn't just something that a number I grabbed out of the air. It was 1.5 based on the R1E, and what council could do is make a condition for the setbacks to remain as per the SR1 zoning, i.e. 3 meters, for, say, the lots that are fronting Southridge Crescent, lots 11 to 14. And the remaining lots that are within the cul-de-sac or to the interior of the subdivision to remain at 1.5. That's one option. Or alternatively, make everything comply with the SR1 setback requirements, that being 3 meters, or as council is currently deliberating to refer it back to staff. So a few options for council.
Councillor Whitmarsh, do you want to push your button down? Yeah, no. Councillor Whitmarsh?
Yeah, I'd be willing to make a motion around the second option suggested there, that all of the 14 lots, that the 1.5 setback be changed to 3.
In line with the SR1 zoning?
Yep.
So you make that amendment?
I'd make that amendment.
Is there a seconder? Second is Councillor Long, so I'll open up amendment. Councillor Long, did you wish? Councillor Long?
Well, if we're going to go with the SR1, was it?
SR1 is.
Yeah. Why don't we do the 33% lot coverage as well? Would that be an issue? Well, right? So that would mean the 3-meter setback plus a 33% lot coverage. So it's only 2%, but it cuts it back and puts it in line with the rest.
Okay, so you're adding those words as an amendment to the amendment. Okay, is there a seconder to that? Councillor Fox. So open up amendment 2. So this is on the language of changing the coverage from 35 to 33% as per SR1. Any discussion on that, the amendment to the amendment? Seeing none, I'm going to call a question on that. So this is just from 35 to 33% on all. On all of them.
It's all on 14 is the.
Yeah. It's 3. That's 2%. Oh, it's huge, but.
Are we voting?
Yeah, I call the question. Yeah. That carries unanimously. So now we're back to the amendment as amended, and that would be to change the setbacks to be consistent with the SR1 zoning of, I believe, 3 meters, and as amended to change the lot coverage from 35 to 33%. So any further discussion on that, on the amendment? Councillor Whitmarsh?
Yeah, the only question I would have is on lot 1. Just wanted to clarify that when it talks about the rear lot line setback to 1.5, that would now be changed to 3, but the other setbacks would remain the same. Is that correct?
That's correct.
On lot 1.
On lot 1.
Yeah. Mr. Seffi is nodding his head. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Long?
Yeah, now, okay, but the setback request for that had something to do with saving trees, didn't it?
It's already in place, yeah.
So we're okay with that. It's
Yeah.
going to still stay this.
Yeah. That was
Yeah.
that's the variance, and that
Okay.
already is in place, yeah. All right, I'll call the question on the amendment as amended. Yeah. Okay, that carries, and now the motion as amended. Councillor Long, did you wish to speak to it again? No. Okay, so on the motion as amended, call the question. That carries with Councillor Arneson opposed. All right, we move on to H4. Rezoning application number 100486, Qualico Developments. This is bylaw 5330 and 5331. This is on 28th Street in Brookswood. Could Councillor Whitmarsh second? Any seconder? Everybody at once? Councillor Long. Discussion on H4. Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I would actually like to move just some additional language. So I'd like to refer Council to page, let me just see, where is it of the report? Page 8, sorry, paragraph 4. So there's language there that speaks to the amenity contributions that are going to be made. So it's got a list there, but it's a list, I think, that could be added to. And I would like to include this language, to include compensatory tree/habitat purchase of significant tree stands in and around the area as identified by staff.
Second.
Okay, I'll open up Amendment 1. Hang on, there we go. I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch all of that.
Oh, should I?
Yeah, just,
okay,
just so
sorry.
I'm clear.
Okay. To include compensatory tree/habitat purchase of significant tree stands in and around the area, comma, as identified by staff.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Councillor Long?
Okay, so we want the proponent to go and buy a forest somewhere in the neighborhood, right?
Can I speak
So,
to this?
no, I mean, it's an interesting concept, but how would we know what size, how many trees? I guess this is going to require a referral as well, then, wouldn't it? Because, and if I'm understanding correctly, Worship, as a community amenity, the proponent needs to buy some trees, a tree lot, is that right?
Yeah, I'll let Councillor Arneson speak to it.
No, I know.
Oh,
But I'll just,
yeah.
I will just say that I want to ask Mr. Seffi, just to be clear, that there are, for this particular development, are there CACs applicable to for the for greenways and green infrastructure? Would they be? Is it already in place? I'm just wondering.
For greenways, Your Worship,
For
yes.
greenways, yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Councillor Arneson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Okay, so I'm going to give you the rationale. So if you look at the staff report, there's the removal of approximately 600 significant trees, and so this proposal is advancing outside of the neighborhood ecological studies. So I think it's appropriate that if you put in a community amenity charge, that you can consider what is already being considered for other neighborhood plans, which would be valuable tree stands. And the condition is that staff would be in a best position to look at what the opportunities are in this area, either contiguous to or within the vicinity of this area, because we've already put in our OCP that what we want to do is to have connectivity. We want to keep the character. We want to maintain some significant trees. And I think that there is a very strong reason why we should be looking, instead of just narrowly focusing on green spaces or greenway amenities. I'm not saying not to do those, but in addition to those, we should have an option where it's appropriate, and this would be staff working with the proponent to say, here are a significant stand of trees in and around this area, and we can take the monies from the redevelopment of this property and invest it in some of the trees that we want to protect.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fox.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure this out. Is this on private land that we would purchase those trees? Because right across the street in 20708, we have quite a significant stand of trees right there, but I'm trying to figure out, okay, so is this F purchase trees? Is this, okay, we're going to substitute the trees for the off-leash dog park? Or it says transfer land to the township in addition to required parkland dedications for public open space pocket parks. So what's wrong with transferring the land to the township with significant tree stands? Why do we need to make that an additional piece if we can't just give direction to staff to say, when we're transferring land to the township, look at it in the context of providing treed stands? I mean, if they're transferring land already, I'm not sure what the intent's to get trees. I understand that, but how are we going to do it? Are we going to expect them to buy some more property? Buy a piece?
Mr. Backen might shed some light on this whole
with
thing.
Councillor Arneson's assistance, I think I may have figured this out. I believe the intent of the amendment is simply to add to the category of the community amenity contributions forested treed stands and riparian areas. So the community amenity fund, or that's being proposed here, which I believe is $78,000 per acre, those funds could be used for the list of things that was listed previously, but in addition for the potential purchase of forests or riparian areas. And with that, then it would be up to staff to determine where and when to buy those, but the fund could be expended in that way. Is that correct?
So it's using the existing CACs, and it's just adding, which we're already doing, but it's sort of another category, but we're kind of already doing that.
But then you've got the word shall. They shall do that. It's not an option then. They have to do that. So now what you've done is added another the developer at his sole cost, in consultation with staff, may, or something like that, I don't know. But if you put shall and you put F, then that's a definitive. That's complete. They have to do it. So what you've done is you've added a cost on top, which will be borne by the house or by the property purchaser at the end of the day.
So I think
it becomes less and less affordable.
Yeah. Okay, so
Your Worship, may I just provide some comments for Council to consider? I understand where Council is I guess, going with the discussion, but rather than include those comments as part of a phase development agreement, which I think Councillor Arneson started discussions with, page 8 of the attachment, that agreement is something that requires the consent of the developer, the proponents. We have actually entered into a discussion. That phase development agreement has gone through a process of negotiations and has gone through a public hearing. So rather than include the conditions, as I see them, as part of that discussion, it should really be taken out of that context and then perhaps, if council so chooses, become a condition of development, rezoning condition, and added to the list of conditions that are listed on the front as opposed to the attachment. So maybe condition 13 of the rezoning.
That's on page 33?
That's correct. Yeah.
Right. So on page 33, you've got the 12 conditions, the recommendations. So if you put that as a number 13, then it takes it out of the shall context and puts it into the conditions context, which I can understand. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, hang on. I'll put your mic on. So you want to respond to that otherwise?
Yes, thank you. Well, I appreciate the putting it in the appropriate place, because I guess, reading all the verbiage, I maybe didn't put it in the right area. And I don't want to interfere with something that's already in play. That wasn't my intention. So, but I would appreciate then having the same language then go as a condition on page 33.
As number 13.
Number 13.
Okay, so if there's unanimous consent on council on that amendment, I see there's no opposition, we'll consider that amendment as under unanimous consent. So now I'll carry on with the speakers and Councillor Sparrow. And you might want to get the motion read out again, because
I'm feeling a little confused. So, okay. Maybe we could start with rereading the motion, and then I could see if that makes me less confused.
The motion reads that condition number 13 be added to include compensatory tree habitat purchase of significant tree stands in and around the area as identified by staff.
Okay, so that doesn't make sense compared to what Mr. Bakken said. So,
I think the piece that's missing is that the CAC funds that are provided for may be used for what she said.
That's the wording I think that's missing. So that's what we're basically saying is adding to the list of CACs that they could use towards these words have been added. Could be used for.
Right. So from the developer's perspective, the same funding is in place. There's been no change. There's been
now we can spend it on those.
But there's a new category that's been introduced into as a condition, and I think that would work.
Yes, that does make more sense to me. I will say again, I find myself saying this often. I feel like these are issues that are on a broader scale that we need to be looking at as a whole, as opposed to one-off individual applications where we put it on specific developers for spontaneous reasons. So I'm understanding, and I think that the wording makes sense in that we can sort of really be specifying that those funds can be used for that. But I do feel like that this is something that I hope we'll have a bigger conversation about when we continue with the CACs as a whole. But thank you for Mr. Bakken's explanation, because that makes a little bit more sense to me of what we're actually referring to right now. So thank you.
So just to be clear, has the amendment been amended again? And that's by unanimous consent? Okay, so could you read it out again as...
The amendment now reads that the funds derived from CACs may be used to include compensatory tree habitat purchase of significant tree stands in and around the areas as identified by staff, added as condition 13.
That consistent with what you're looking for? Okay, that sounds like it is. Councillor Long.
Okay, I just want to make sure I've got it fitted on properly. So the $78,740 per acre, developable acre, is being contributed as community amenities, and up until this very moment that we couldn't spend that on trees. We could only spend it on fire halls and other things. So this is expanding the ability to spend that money on tree stands should we have them identified by staff.
But I believe that particular CAC...
I'm seeing nods here. I'm looking for nods everywhere. Yeah.
That particular CAC...
Well, I see frowns, but okay. Yeah. So it's interesting to me that there would be restrictions on what the CSEs can be spent on, but I guess that's all part of the negotiations, right? So I thought if there was $78,740 per developable acre coming as CACs, we could spend them as we see fit, but that's not the case?
Not quite the case, because in the context of a CAC, it's really an agreement that specifies the amount and the type. So in here, we're very clear as to the amount, and the assumption is that the developer will consent to the type. If they don't, then we'd have to come back.
Well, this is all brought on because of the amount of trees that had to be removed, but I also point out that I guess from what I can read here, there's 618 trees going out, or potentially going out, but at the end of the day, there'll be 688 trees in there, so that's good news right there. So if this is being added as expanding the ability to spend the CACs, I guess that's okay, but I'd hate to see that trees being bought instead of additions to the fire halls and other things that may be required. So I guess that's a juggling act the staff will have to look after as to where those CACs are expended, but we're giving them the ability here to buy trees as well, or treed lots.
Okay, right. Thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment? As amended, as amended, as amended. Okay, so I'm going to call a question on the amendment on H4. It carries unanimously. Now we're back to the motion as amended. Any further discussion on the motion as amended? Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, I have a question through your worship to staff. I'm looking at the subdivision layout, and 34A becomes the primary access point into the subdivision of 84 homes, and I know there's a right. It's a right in right out sort of entrance in 34A. Or sorry, on 33A and 35A, but 34A, I'm wondering about traffic flow. It's on a hill, and I'm not so much maybe needing a light, maybe not at this point, but I'm wondering about heading south, a left-hand turning lane onto 34A, and whether the necessity of that, with 84 homes there, and likely future expansion of this further north to 36th Avenue, that I'm just wondering about traffic on that hill. It's a very fast road. Cars, once they pass 36th Avenue and keep heading south, they think of it as a racetrack, and so they step on it and go very fast. And so I'm concerned about that intersection, people trying to come in and out of 34A without a left-hand turning lane. And we just at 208 and 34, yeah.
Mr. Seffi?
34A. So I just wanted some advice or thoughts from staff.
Sure. Mrs. Seffi?
Your Worship, if Council wishes, the conditions again could be amended to include a traffic impact study to demonstrate or identify if there is a need for additional widening on 34A to allow for a left turning movement.
Would the widening be on 34A or would it have to be on 208?
Well, either way.
Okay.
Or both.
Yeah, I'd like to make that amendment to have a traffic flow study for this subdivision on 208.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Arneson seconds the amendment to Councillor Qualley.
Sorry, just to be clear, Councillor Whitmarsh, is your concern heading down 208th and making a left turn onto 34A because it's uncontrolled there? Is that what you're... I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, my concern is people that are coming on 208th, heading south, so they're going to, say, from Brookswood High School is just not very far from here, and they're going to head south and go down. As soon as they cross 36, which isn't quite shown on this map, it's a little bit north of this, then they basically step on it because it's a hill and it's like a racetrack all of a sudden. I don't know why people think that. But they go through 36 and they go very fast up that hill. And because it's on a hill and you can't really see what's coming down very well, sort of heading down north, people turning left into 34A, onto 34A, I think it could cause some real challenges as cars are speeding up the hill, someone's trying to turn left, another car's coming down, which you can't quite see. And it seems to me with 84 homes there that at least a left-hand turning lane would be helpful. Probably not necessary to have signalization, but a left-hand turning lane so that you could at least avoid cars speeding up from right up behind you and causing issues.
Does that help?
It does, but sorry, the left-hand turning lane would be on the southbound lane on 208th Street. Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm just suggesting, I'm not a traffic expert, but I'm
Oh,
suggesting that might be a possible...
Right.
What he's suggesting is that there would be a traffic study.
No, I understand. I just want to
Yeah.
make sure I'm understanding the location of the problem properly. So, okay, thank you.
And Mr. Seffi, was there a traffic impact study done for this subdivision?
No, Your Worship, no,
Okay.
not at this stage.
So this amendment would just require them to do one, and then staff would act on that.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, I'll call a question on the amendment to add traffic study. It carries unanimously. Back to the main motion as amended. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the main motion as amended. Hang on. There we go. We're on. And that carries. Councillor Richter and Councillor Arneson opposed. And move on to bylaws for final adoption. And this is rezoning application number 100476, bylaw number 5313, Wagner Hills Farm Society. Councillor Long, second by Councillor Qualley. Discussion on I1. Seeing none, I'll call the question. Carries unanimously. And we move on to, the Mayor and Council report. That's why everybody stayed. Oh, hold it. Where'd they go? All right. Good evening, everyone. This is the Mayor's report on Tuesday, February the 20th, Councillor Fox, Councillor Long, Councillor Richter, and I attended the Willoughby Residents Association regular meeting at the Shepherd in the Valley Church. RCMP members from the Block Watch program presented information, and residents and members of council discussed road and sidewalk improvements. On Wednesday, February the 21st, Cloverdale-Langley City MP John Eldag hosted a Let's Talk Senior Housing, another opportunity to join the conversation, which took place in Cloverdale. The focus was on understanding the need for affordable senior housing and how the goals of the National Housing Strategy will be realized in communities. On Saturday, February the 24th, was the annual Coldest Night of the Year event, where dozens of people gathered to take part in the walk and raise monies for the Gateway of Hope. Councillor Davis was along for the walk, and Councillor Whitmarsh showed up, but I didn't see you walking. Yeah, okay, I walked.
I showed up and didn't walk.
I walked a whole 2 kilometers, and then off to the firefighters' dinner, which is next. Later that evening, we went to the annual firefighters' dinner and awards hosted at the George Preston Recreation Centre. Last year was a very busy year for our fire department, which dealt with more than 5,700 incidents in 2017. This was a chance to thank the hardworking, dedicated men and women who give so much to our community and to keep it safe and make the Township of Langley an exceptional place people want to live and work in. On Sunday, February the 25th, was a Junior Boys Basketball Provincial Invitational Championships and Banquet. And Thursday, March 1, was the Junior Girls Provincial Invitational Basketball Championships Banquet. And I can tell you that those grade 10 girls make a lot of noise when they want to eat, I tell you. They were chanting for the table to be picked. I was pleased to attend and see a room full of highly energized young athletes. And I also understand that Walnut Grove Junior Girls just won the Invitational Tournament, so congratulations to them. They are the BC champs in junior basketball. National Cupcake Day was Monday, February the 26th. Township staff raised just over $1,000 for the Langley Animal Protection Society. I'd like to thank our very own Melissa Cook for spearheading this fundraising event at the Township Civic Facility. And then we headed off to Laps, and it's probably going to get in trouble now, but I was feeding icing to a kitten. But the kitten seemed to like it, on the cupcake.
It's probably buttercream.
Buttercream, oh yeah, it really enjoyed it. On Tuesday, February the 27th, I, along with Councillor Qualley, attended the Langley Hospice Evening of Fun, a fundraiser in support of the new 15-bed Langley Hospice residence. The event took place at the new location of One Fish, Two Fish, and was very well attended. Playing the guitar? Yeah, he did a good job. It was good. On the Village Memory Care Community presentation was held on February the 28th here at the Civic Facility. There was a great number of people here to view the display boards and have a sandwich and chat about this remarkable new housing project, which provides care for those suffering from memory loss and dementia. On Wednesday, February the 28th, was also Pink Shirt Day, and there were a lot of pink shirts being worn. Great to see so many participate in this annual awareness about anti-bullying. On Friday, March 2nd, I visited the newly renovated and reopened Ralph's Market on Fraser Highway. It was nice to see how they've expanded and added a small bistro for their customers. I'd like to thank Ralph and Elizabeth Merck for the tour and the newly renovated market, and it's quite impressive in there. I was really impressed. I also attended the Kwantlen Polytechnic University's A Journey into the Patient Experience, which was very informative, and seeing through Vikram, who's on the left there, his journey has had cancer since he was 5, and all of the surgeries and treatments he's had to undergo and still continuing. And then Narmita, a nurse who's been nursing for many years in countries like Oman, and then recently at the cancer clinic in Vancouver, and getting her point of view is very informative and a very interesting talk, and much appreciated. On Friday evening was the Fraser Valley Cultural Diversity Awards and Banquet in Abbotsford. Our very own Councillor Arneson, okay, now we can give applause, was nominated for the Champion of Diversity Award. Congratulations, Councillor. Their mission is to recognize the best practices of Fraser Valley organizations, initiatives, and businesses in recognizing the diversity of our community, and they do a great job reaching that goal. I had the pleasure of meeting guest speaker Tali Osborne, who is an amazing speaker and an individual who has never seen any limitations of what is possible, and has proven that in her own life. Tali is truly inspirational, and she was born without arms and without the leg bones, right? So she's, and she was very inspirational in how she's just loves life. On Saturday, March 3rd, I attended the Township of Langley Model United Nations, and it was here at the Civic Facility. This group of high school students from RE Mountain showcased their skills in debating, public speaking, diplomacy, and examining world issues that affect all of us. This was their 5th annual Tulman, so congratulations to all of them. And a great group of energetic young people filled this place, and they were here all day. On Saturday evening was the Langley Forest Schools Gala in Wonderland at the Fort Langley Community Hall. All proceeds benefit the Langley Forest Schools development and provision of outdoor education for young children, outdoor equipment, and learning materials. And they have their school at Williams Park, and very well attended. Today was the annual Langley Memorial Hospital Auxiliary AGM, where for 71 years they've been providing excellent service to our community. That is more than 7 decades of greeting visitors, helping at the gift shop and thrift store, socializing with and supporting patients and families, and raising much-needed funds for the hospital. Diane Thornton, longtime president of the board, is retiring from this position, and I wish to thank her for all of her work over the years. Upcoming events on Friday, March 9th is Bowl for Kids' Sake event kickoff at Willowbrook Lanes. That's for Big Brothers Big Sisters. Friday, March 9th, West Fine Arts Show reception at the Yorkson Middle School. And Thursday, March 15th, Social Sustainability Panel at the Langley Event Center. So with that, I would ask if council has anything to add. And they don't, so we'll move on. And thank you for listening. It's been a busy couple of weeks. So now we move on to other business. And Councillor Richter, I'll put your mic on. You have M1.
Thank you. Whereas a significant property owner and developer has publicly expressed discontent with the treatment he has received from the Township of Langley, and has said that he is now no longer able to proceed to redevelop relatively large sites within the center of the commercial core of Fort Langley, and has started to permanently board some of them up. Therefore, be it resolved that Council invite Mr. Eric Woodward to the next regular evening meeting of Council to present and discuss his concerns about the Township of Langley. I so move.
Seconder? See no second. Councillor Whitmarsh seconds. Discussion? Councillor Long?
Your Worship, the Council has always had an open delegation process here. Any citizen can come forward and bring their concerns to the Council. If we're going to start inviting them, I've got a couple of people I'd like to invite. There was a family that came to us and wanted to have an extra mobile home put on their property for their parents to live in so that they could age in place. There's other folks that have come and said, hey, I'd like to have 3 or 4 driveways into my property, but unfortunately staff didn't allow that. Maybe we should invite them to come and tell us why. How about somebody else that wants to have 10 dogs, and we don't allow that, so we should invite them to come and tell us why they're upset. There's a voluntary system here that delegations can come and speak to council. If we start inviting individuals to come because they have a beef with us, then there's a big long list we're going to have to make to invite everybody in the township that has a concern.
Thank you. Councillor Qualley?
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Long. I think, to me, this feels a bit like a game. Council doesn't summon people to these chambers. This municipal hall is open and always has been open to the people of Langley. Councillor Richter and Mr. Woodward arguably know the process for delegations better than anyone else in this community. I'm not going to support the motion, not because I don't want to hear from Mr. Woodward, because I actually really do. I want to hear about his plans for beautification in the fort in the absence of development applications. I'd like to hear about his the status of the underground wiring connections in the fort, but he has to delegate on his terms, not ours. We don't summon people to these chambers to talk about their problems and concerns. When we want to hear from them, this door is always open. So I would strongly encourage Mr. Woodward to fill out the paperwork and make a delegation to council anytime he sees fit, a proper delegation, rather than manufacturing drama in the local papers and press through social media. It would be far more respectful, effective means of communication and allow a genuine exchange of actual facts between Mr. Woodward, council, and our staff. I think this motion sends a dangerous message to the development community and to our staff. We're here to govern. The business of the municipality should be taken seriously. This political gamesmanship is completely out of line.
Thank you. Councillor Richter?
Well, for starters, I'm offended that they consider it a game. I think that the motion is quite clear. It's not a 5-minute delegation. It's a presentation that I'm requesting here.
And I believe that Mr. Woodward probably has a fairly lengthy list of concerns that he'd like to address with us, and 5 minutes just wouldn't cover it. So I feel that we should give him the opportunity to make a presentation to us to outline his concerns. And in terms of what's happening right now, it's not helping anybody. We've got buildings that are boarded up in Fort Langley and trees that are being cut in Fort Langley. And if this continues on the way it's going, how long is it going to last for? And if this is something that is going to go on for years, then that's not good for either Fort Langley or the Township of Langley. So I think it's time to confront this head on. I think that Mr. Woodward has made it quite clear he has concerns. I think he has the right to come and address those concerns with us. And I think by us extending an invitation and opening the door to him to come and address those concerns, it's a step in the direction of goodwill and hopefully resolving what could be a very long-term and unpalatable situation for all.
Thank you. Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, this is a challenging issue. I certainly am not happy with the way things have gone in Fort Langley. I'm not happy with the boarding up of buildings. All of us on council have received many emails very upset about the boarding up of the stores and shops in Fort Langley. We've had many, I've had many emails, people that support the steps that Mr. Woodward has taken, and so it's becoming a fairly divisive part in the community. And on one hand, we certainly do have our procedures that one would follow in how they would process these kinds of issues and so on. And normally, I would suggest that we need to follow the normal process. However, this isn't really normal. This is not a normal situation. We have a particular person who, whether we like it or not, owns a significant portion of the commercial buildings in Fort Langley and is really choosing right now to do nothing that is illegal. In fact, he's doing it all within our guidelines, and yet it makes it a bit of a farce in Fort Langley. And I'm concerned about Fort Langley. I want Fort Langley to be a great and thriving community. And so on one hand, I think we can just say, you know, let him come to us, and we'll wait until he comes to us, and we'll just see what happens. But on the other hand, I think council has an obligation to reach out and to try and make a difference and to be able to take that step. Having us listen to Mr. Woodward doesn't mean by any means that we have to accept all the things he says. We don't have to go along with any things he advises us on. We simply have to, we're simply asking him to come and speak. It's not summoning him. Summons means he's required to. This is an invitation. It's his choice whether he comes or not. And we listen. And in the end, we may totally disagree with him or we may agree with him. That's not the point. The point is we as council are wanting to hear people out, and in this case it is an unusual situation. It is not the same as a neighbor who has a fence that's a foot over from where it should be. This is a person who is holding much of the town of Fort Langley, one of the jewels of British Columbia, at hostage, and I'm not happy with it, and I think it's an extension to hear him out. I would, if we were to do this, I would want to limit the time, so Councillor Richter suggested 5 minutes is not long enough. Maybe we'd limit it to 10 minutes because I certainly don't want it to go on and on and on. But I do think that us extending that opportunity to hear him out is a good thing, and then we can make our decisions of where we move from there.
Thank you. Councillor Fox.
Well, thank you. I won't support this. I talked to Mr. Woodward approximately 3 weeks ago, and he said to me, not once, not twice, a minimum of 3 times, I just want to be left alone. Just leave me alone. I don't want counsel. Just leave me alone. With all due respect, Mr. Woodward's words ring true. Just leave him alone. This is not the way that Mr. Woodward. In fact, Councillor Long, you were in the car when he phoned me.
I didn't listen in.
No, you didn't listen in.
Okay,
but the point being that, you know, some of us are still in communication with Mr. with Mr. Woodward. Those was his words to me. If we're going to invite Mr. Woodward, do we need to invite Mr. Van der Zam? Do we need to invite Mr. Lanston Foster? Do we need to invite Gord Clausen, who's done significant design work? I was in Fort Langley on Saturday. There was more cement trucks flying around Fort Langley on Saturday, pumping concrete into Albion and Lily Terrace. There's a lot of construction going on in Fort Langley. There's a lot of positive things happening in Fort Langley. I see heads nodding in the audience right now. There's a lot happening in Fort Langley. So do we have to invite those people in to tell us what their story is too? I respect what Mr. Woodward said to me. Just leave me alone. I'm going to leave him alone. Thank you.
Councillor Sparrow?
Yeah, I think that Mr. Woodward is certainly very aware of the process, and if he was interested or wanting to come and present to council, I think as he's done before to council, he could do that. If he felt or council felt that there needed to be a longer time, I'm sure that there's a process that he could go through to have a longer length of time, and I'm sure this council would be very open to giving him extra minutes. But I think putting it on him as on us to require him to come and speak in front of us when he may just want to be left alone. I'm not sure. I haven't heard that from him myself. But I think that the door is open, and we are certainly willing to hear from him if he would like to come and give us any information that we don't already have. I think there are better ways to go about this. I don't think that he's probably gone the route of going through Councillor Richter to have this be presented. I'm sure he knows the way to get in front of us and speak to us. So I'm not going to support this because I don't feel that it's the right way to go about it. So.
Thank you. Councillor Arneson?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I do appreciate the conversation at the table. I've really, debated this myself, the position that we find ourselves in. I liked Councillor Whitmarsh's term of being held hostage. That's what it feels like to me. However, this is something that it's not illegal. It is something that a person who is in a position has chosen to do, and very unfortunately the community has to suffer the consequences of that. And so I try, as I always do, to put this into a policy framework and ask myself, under any circumstances, would this be the right thing to do? And I do understand it's unique, and I do understand that it's very problematic, and so maybe it's not a situation where the norms apply. However, I would like to echo the comments of some of my council mates that anybody is free at any time to come and give a delegation to council. That is our standard process. I haven't been on council for as long as some, but I've not really known myself of anybody who's, we roll out the red carpet and ask them to come. That may be a bit of an exaggeration, but to try and do some kind of entreaty to get a person to come who has obviously no problem in putting their information and their ideas out on a completely different platform, and rather than just coming and talking to us, I find that problematic. So also, just the very precedent that we're going to set. I agree with Councillor Long. What does that mean for others who disagree with what we're doing? Does that mean that we want to encourage them at any given time to come and tell us what their problems are and why we should, be, doing what they would prefer us to do? The other one is just from a staff point of view. I think that we have staff who have done a lot of work around planning, regulatory issues, and other considerations within the context of these development proposals. These are objective planning standards. We're not talking about somebody's capricious whim to say, oh, we like this or we don't like that. I think it would be very unfortunate if council were then suddenly to be put on the front line of saying, oh, okay, well, I want this or I need that or whatever the rationale is. I think it would be not productive or helpful. The only thing that I would recommend, I have trouble supporting the idea that we are inviting somebody to come and speak, but I do appreciate the fact that we are at an impasse, and it would be most helpful if we could collectively come to terms with how are we going to engage a major developer in Fort Langley to sit down to discuss with council and staff present to air these concerns, so that instead of just having a compressed presentation, which I know what that's like, we have a fulsome way in order to discuss what the problems are, hopefully with our problem-solving hats on, so that we can all have a go at trying to make sure that this is done in a procedurally fair way, but in a way that also represents our planning process and how we proceed with applications. So if that happens, I would be very supportive of that. But until such time, I think that unless I see Mr. Woodward coming here of his own volition, then I'm not going to be supportive of encouraging him to come at our special invitation.
Thank you. Councillor Qualley?
Thank you. Yeah, I think if we're going to start rolling out the red carpet, as Councillor Arneson said, I'd like to see the carpet rolled out for the people who own all the empty buildings in Aldergrove, because that's been going on a lot longer and it's quite problematic for that community. I'd also like to see the red carpet rolled out for the people that are not developing in what we might consider a timely fashion on 208 Street that's causing the delay in widening the road. So I think there's a lot of issues that if we're going to call people before us to explain their rationale for not doing something and following bylaws, and which he's doing, and following the protocol, then I think we'll have a long list of council invitations going out in the mail in the next few weeks. And like I said, I think this creates a precedence we don't want to set, and Mr. Woodward knows better than anybody else how the process works, and I would welcome his delegation.
Thank you. Any further discussion from council? I'd just like to add my 2 bits. It's been great comments from all members of council here, and certainly concerns that we do want to show that we're open to discussing and looking for solutions. And this council, members of this council, I think do that almost every day. People call and ask us for advice and that sort of thing. And we do offer the delegation process, and we saw delegations this evening and the afternoon where folks can come in and delegate to us, and we can listen. So that option is always there. I've stated in the media, I've been asked about this several times, and people have asked me, and I say one thing we have to do is respect property owners' rights and respect the process that's in place, and also our door is always open, and the door is open. Dialogue continues with Mr. Woodward. I've had some great chats with him, and hopefully we can he can work his way through some of the concerns, and we're continuing that dialogue. It hasn't stopped, and there are members of council that do like to talk to people who are investing in our communities. So I think this is a great initiative to invite them. However, I do agree that it may be a precedent, and that I would certainly support letting him know that there's the delegation process available to him. And Councillor Richter.
Well, if we want to show that we're open and we're willing to problem solve and our door is always open, then how else are we going to do it? I mean, this is a problem that needs to be solved. And the best way to solve it is to start it by talking about it. We haven't even talked to him about it. We've done a lot of nattering behind closed doors on several aspects, but we haven't actually sat down with the man face to face to find out what his concerns are. So, I mean, you guys who are sitting here, he knows the delegation process, blah, blah, blah. I've told you, this is not about a delegation. This is about a presentation. It's not a command appearance. If he says he just wants to be left alone, I'm sure he'll tell us he just wants to be left alone. But we're the leaders in the community. We're the ones that have to make the first step. And so if this isn't a viable first step, then what is? Because if we don't try to fix this, it's not going to get fixed. And that's just wrong.
Thank you. Well, just add my comments to that. Conversations have been going on. This maybe some members of council haven't spoken to him, but there are other members of council that have. And I've spoken to the owners of the Aldergrove Mall. Councillor Long and I have met with them, and Councillor Fox. We speak. Maybe not every member of council does, but we do reach out, and we're reaching out to. It hasn't stopped. The door is open, and we have to respect his rights. Councillor Long.
I just want to remind us that we sent a letter to Mr. Woodward quite a while ago, okay, and I don't think we got a response. There was a letter sent by staff when he had some concerns about one of his development, and we said we would like to hear from you what you would like to propose in lieu of what the staff have said. A nice, concise letter was sent to him. It was released in public. I have never seen a response from that, so we have reached out.
Thank you. Councillor Fox.
Well,
Call the question.
I have to, yes, we're the leaders, but leadership and discussion takes a two-way street. I've been told, please leave me alone. I think that closes the door on a two-way street. Yes, we take initiative. Yes, we have opportunity. There's opportunity tonight. We saw ourselves with 2 delegations tonight going well over the time frame. No problem. We dealt with it. I think that it's a two-way street. Our door is open, and this is not a game. This is Mr. Woodward is welcome to come here anytime and make his presentation, but he's respectfully said, just leave me alone. So that's fair.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to call the question on M1. And the motion fails with Councillor Fox, Councillor Arneson, Mayor Froese, Councillor Qualley, Councillor Sparrow, Councillor Long opposed. Move on to M2 and Councillor Arneson. And you're not going to read all those whereas?
No.
Okay, thanks.
I'll spare you all the whereases. Here's the Coles Notes version. Yeah, thank you. So I'll just be reading the therefore be it resolved. Oh, thank you. Oh, we're fast tracking. Okay. Therefore, be it resolved that LMLGA endorse this resolution by forwarding these concerns to UBCM, FCM, and to the provincial and federal government in order to create a framework to articulate and establish enforceable protocols and legally binding agreements to ensure that the Trans Mountain Pipeline must be in substantial compliance with all provincial and municipal permitting and authorizations prior to commencing with pipeline expansion associated works in any local area. And if I can speak to that? Sure. Okay, thank you.
Seconder? Councillor Fox seconds. Councillor Arneson.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the issue of the twinning of the Kinder Morgan pipeline has been considered, as we know. It's very topical these days. There's a number of level of governments have really been considering this most vigorously, especially in the last couple of months. However, these discussions really are focusing at the higher level of governments, like the federal governments and the provincial government. And my concern, and I think the concern that's starting to resonate throughout the community, and not just ours, but others, is that the ability to build the pipeline and any kind of endorsement that they have received so far is eroding our local government ability to manage and oversee any environmental protections and protocols that we have within our community. So the township itself has identified many of the problems that we anticipate having with engineering projects, roadways, etc. But there's also many other things that were discussed tonight, including local waterways, aquifers, farming activities that will also be impacted. So the purpose of this bringing forward this at this time is to look at the opportunity now that we have this momentum going forward, and to really look to all the instruments and all the legal frameworks that we have in the Township of Langley, which is a local government, in order to ensure, which is our mandate, that we protect our environment. That is our job. So I think that the reason the notice of motion was put forward at this time is in the hopes that there will be other communities that will be impacted by the twinning, and that this resolution be circulated. And the purpose of it really is to send a strong message to other levels of government in order to protect our fundamental rights. Because I think that we do have the right and the obligation to protect our local environment, and therefore I'm hoping that this will move its way right up the food chain, and that at some point local governments are going to have to be recognized as having special autonomy and authority that we have fought for in other areas to make sure that we are not being undermined in our ability to look after our citizens.
Councillor Sparrow?
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to wrap my head around what's being asked here. Is Councillor Arneson's motion here one you're asking to put forward on the floor at LMLGA? Okay, so this would be one of our motions that LMLGA would vote on at the upcoming conference. Okay, I didn't really get that from the wording of that. Is this how we normally word these, or is that no? Do you want to say something?
Ms. Bauer.
Ms. Bauer.
Ms. Bauer, can you help out?
It would be better if the motion included wording to say forwarded to the LGLMA.
For inclusion
yes.
of the at the next session. I'll make that amendment just to clarify the wording that's what we're doing, because when I read it, I wasn't quite sure that's what this was being asked of council.
Okay, so by unanimous consent, the amendment, just to clarify the wording. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question on M2. And it carries unanimously. Is there any other business? Councillor Richter.
Yes, I'd like to refer the SRES and pipeline presentations to staff for a report on the points raised, especially around protection of our water resources.
Thank you. Is there a seconder to referral? Councillor Arneson. Discussion on that?
Yes, I'd just like to say that I think there was a list of actions that are very viable actions, and the discussion did look at legal aspects, so I think our staff, if they could give us some advice on which of those actions we can take that are strong, that have a strong legally defensible position, then I think that's something we should be looking forward to doing in order to ensure that our community is not left in the same condition that some parts of Abbotsford and Alberta have been left in after Trans Mountain's come through.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Call the question. 3. It carries unanimously. Any other business?
And I have a second one. I'd like to refer the Sukurai delegation to staff for a report on the formation of a standing committee on a comprehensive tree bylaw in the township.
There's a seconder, so we're going to refer to bring back the report to, because it's a delegation.
Because
so
they've requested the formation of a standing committee, so.
To bring back the report. Councillor Arneson seconds. Councillor Long?
So we're referring the delegation to staff for a report on the, on whether one should be formed, or what should be happening.
Can we do it? Can we do it within a 90-day period? Can we include all the groups that they've recommended be included?
Well, those are two different things, Your Worship. It sounds to me like the referral is to form a task force, whereas I've always supported referring delegations to staff for advice on whether we should proceed or not on certain
well, that's
initiatives.
what the motion says. Refer the Sukurai delegation to staff for a report on the formation of a standing committee on a comprehensive tree protection bylaw in the township. That's what it is. It's a referral to staff for their advice on it.
On the technical aspects of how to form a committee.
I heard for their advice on it. Yeah. I don't know if that was in the motion, but that's different than referring it to staff.
Okay, for a report.
On the advisability?
Well, my intent was on their advice concerning the formation of. How's that?
How it fits into our work plan.
I like that.
I think they'd advise on that also with that report on a work plan that council's already put forward through our sessions on priority setting. Okay, so that's been moved and seconded. I'll call the question on that. And that carries. Fox moves termination. Seconder. Councillor Qualley. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks for sticking around. Meeting's over.